Hey everyone, welcome to Snowpal's Software Development and Architecture podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Vidhi Vohra, a certified emotional practitioner from the Priority Academy and a legal contract lead with the prestigious Big Four. Beyond her professional accolades, Vidhi is a people person, finding joy in connecting with individuals from diverse backgrounds. When she's not navigating legal complexities, Vidhi dedicates her time to making a positive impact on people's lives. Vidhi's passion lies in being a supportive presence for others, assisting them in navigating both professional and personal challenges. Proudly wearing the hat of a mother to two handsome sons, Vidhi is not just raising children, but nurturing empathetic beings. She believes in instilling the importance of humanity and empathy. Vidhi's journey isn't just about contracts and legalities, it's a vibrant tapestry of connecting with people, motivating them to embrace kindness, and fostering a culture of empathy at every step. Thank you very much, Vidhi, for taking time to having this conversation.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for calling me and giving me a chance to be on your podcast. I'm sure I'll give my best and let's see how it goes. All the best to you
Awesome.
and me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm super stoked about having this conversation for a variety of reasons. One is, as we had spoken offline, a majority of the podcasts, if not almost exclusively so, are technical podcasts, right? But off late, in the last couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity to collaborate with folks such as yourself, and it's been very interesting. We're talking a broad range of topics.
Yeah.
We've touched topics outside core engineering already, but today's topic is actually even more exciting personally for me because it's I had to step out of the comfort zone of engineering. Right, this is a topic I have no experience with, so I was looking forward to seeing, okay, how can I hopefully do justice and pull this off. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to first having this conversation. Right, so for folks who are watching, this is going to be a slightly different podcast, and just that the nature of topic we are going to touch upon in this conversation is quite a bit different from what we've typically talked in previous conversations. So, without further ado, I want to get started essentially, right? So, the topic of today's conversation is mental health. Now, I say that with caution because this is certainly not only not my area of expertise. I honestly have no, idea about the topic other than as a person who understands those words and the sequencing of those words. I don't have any other experience, right? Now, Vidhi is a professional in the legal space. So, much like myself, she does something else for a living. So, here is a software engineer talking to a lawyer, but the topic is not legalities, the topic is not engineering, which is what I think is going to make this conversation, in my mind, a whole lot more interesting. We're going to go outside our comfort zones and talk about items that are important yet not something we think, not things we do on a daily basis, essentially, right? And when Vidhi proposed this topic to me, I was like, oh my god, is it going to be, would I be able to pull this off? And I think, unless you try, you never know. So as a disclaimer, neither of these are no, sorry neither of us are experts in this topic, not by any stretch of anyone's imagination. So just to make it very clear, there are folks who are qualified, professionals, certified with all the the requirements of what this very delicate and super important topic requires. So if you need help of that nature, obviously I'm going to state the obvious. You're going to find people who are qualified, so you can have those conversations with those qualified folks. Here we are two people who believe this is a conversation that is worth having, because the more people talk about these things, the more we hope we can help with some of these items. That's the whole essence, right? So that's like a big, I guess, 2 minute disclaimer. But without, I don't want to delay that any further because I'm kind of itching to get into the conversation. But before we kick off the conversation with you, I'm just going to read out from the World Health Organization, like from who, what their definition of mental health is, right? So I'm going to be literally reading from who.int, the very first paragraph, right? It says, mental health is a state of mental well being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. It is an integral component of health and well being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationships, and shape the world we live in. Mental health is a basic human right, and it is crucial to personal community and socio-economic development, right? So there is obviously more to it, but I'm going to pause here for a second and just say, Vidhi, let's get started. Tell me what interests you about this topic, and we can kick off from there.
So I think this topic actually came to my mind, and I have been thinking about it a lot lately after COVID hit every one of us around the world. So after COVID, I think when we went back to work and we started our early timings of going to back to work and starting meeting people. I'm personally very interactive with people. So after the pandemic, when I went and I met a lot of people at work, outside work. So there was this, still there is an hesitation in people connecting with each other before COVID. So I think that actually gave me this particular point at thinking that what is happening around with mental issues. I know lately a lot have been talked about it and a lot of people are talking about it. Celebrities are coming out of their shells, telling them that they have been facing depression or anxiety or whatever mental issues they have been facing. But still, there is like from the middle class to any you can get higher class or upper middle. They are still not that confident about talking about it, but they all are feeling it. They're all going through it. So it all started in my head that even I was facing it at some point of time. So we started discussing at work, that that we are coming back to work now, so we have to make connect. And it was only a discussion that we were having, that we are going to have a connect with everybody and we'll talk. But nobody was actually able to. I think that was the biggest challenge which everybody was facing after the pandemic. They became so socially inactive, isolated. They had loneliness in their heads. They were just stick to their laptops and mobiles and games. I think that's a big hit on everybody. So, I decided to take this emotional practitioner course as well from the Priority Academy, though it is not something which has given me a certification to help people, in terms of degree or something. But yes, the empathy which I read about empathy a lot during those days, read about the people who are suffering from different kind of mental issues, personally, professionally, and it has not only hit professionally, it has hit a lot of people personally as well. So after doing that certification, I posted it on LinkedIn, and people started coming back to me on LinkedIn, and they started talking about it. So I felt, that there is actually a need of more speaking with people and, getting them out of their shells to talk about what they are facing instead of just becoming a practitioner just for the sake of it, getting a degree or diploma. I don't think that this particular topic with mental issues and mental health, it is not at all necessary to get a diploma or certification. I'm sure it helps, but I would not say that it's a mandate if you really want to help somebody. So that ways, this whole thing came into the picture, and I started talking to people, and then I realized that this is something I can do with my personality coming out of my own comfort zone, that I don't ask people a lot of questions, that what they are facing. So because I'm not somebody who will dig deep or ask any questions about their personal lives or what is happening. But yes, if somebody is coming to me, that was like before I decided that I'll get into this thing and ask people that if they're actually suffering from something. But before that, I was not into it. They, the friends and everybody who used to talk, it's fine if you really want to talk. If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. But once you get a professional degree and you add it to your LinkedIn accounts and everything, I think people start making notice of it, that okay, maybe we can take a little bit of professional help, at least if you know that person personally. So a lot of
Mm.
friends came in and they actually wanted to speak about it, that this is what we are facing. And especially at work, they are not able to make any connect for a very long time. It's 3 years that we have started going to work, but the connects are still struggling in becoming a part of their life. So this is how I started all of this.
Perfect, right? Thanks. That's a
Yeah.
great introduction. So let's dig deeper, right? You mentioned pandemic a few times, right, in your
Hmm.
explanation here. So do you see, and just by way of context to folks who are watching this, Vidhi and I we are located in two different parts of the world, right? So, but we are both in the nation's capitals of those countries, right? So Vidhi lives in Delhi. I live in the suburbs of like Washington D.C. The reason I mentioned that is during the conversation, we're going to touch upon items that are common across regions, geographic regions, but my hope is also to get into certain aspects that could be specific to those different parts of the world, right? There is always differences, right? There are commonalities, but there's also differences. I want to get into those aspects. And I think personally it's also important. Personally it is important, but professionally it's also important to me because, as somebody who runs a software company that's located in the US and works with people across the globe, and also, with a number of people back in India, it is important to understand this, right? So to me it's particularly of interest to understanding what this means in one part of the world, what that means in another part of the world, what are some of the similarities and what are some of the differences, right? So let me go back to, you mentioned pandemic. Do you see in your mind with it any difference, and if so, how significant a difference between problems in this space before, during, and after the pandemic? Like, in your mind, if you were to like break this down into three categories, how would you break that down, and what are some of the have you seen any changes? I know you mentioned some, like what would some of those changes be? So if you could just speak to it as three phases, right? Before, during, and after.
Okay. So, like, since you are completely into technology, and I have a lot of friends in technology, frankly, most of my friends are into software. So, and we have long conversations because we are like 20 years old friends and 15 years long friendships going on. So, we discuss everything from, when the pandemic hit and before that, and of course, during. We had long conversations over calls. So I think before pandemic, people were more open at workplaces. They were more, interested in connecting, going out, have team outings, have a lot of activities at work, and they actually wanted to connect, and they were having a lot of fun with it. But after, like, I would take during, after pandemic hit, after, there is a major change in the major shift in the mentality of people to get to know other people. They really don't want to connect with other people. I don't know how this isolation came into the picture after pandemic, that people were really not so willing to come out of their work zones. I would say they were working from home and they really didn't want to go back to office. Although they were stressed at home, there were like n number of things going on at work and personally, but still they didn't want to go to work. I actually was very confused at that point of time, that when we were getting those emails from work that the offices are opening up, and everybody was getting from different brands from the software industry as well. So they were like not very willing to take up that work from office culture once again after 3 4 years of long work from home. Maybe it was easier for all of us to maintain a work life balance in a very very healthier manner than going to office, commuting for 2 hours, because in India, I'll tell you, the commutation is also very long. Like, if
Right.
I go from my home to my work, it takes 1.5 good hours from one side. So 3 4 hours I'm traveling every day, then I'm going to work, and then at work also you have to be giving your 100%. And initially, like before pandemic, the managers were more understanding, maybe because they were connecting a lot with their teammates. So they understood that if somebody is not behaving in a particular way, it is because there is something happening with him or her, right? But after pandemic, since everybody has lost connect, they are not meeting people, they are not seeing each other face to face. They really don't know what is happening in their, team members' lives or personal, professional, whatever challenges they are facing. So I think that also became a very, very important part, that people were really not able to understand each other so well after the pandemic. So the
Right.
connect never happened. And
So what
now,
you're saying,
even,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, no, go
No, no,
ahead,
go
please.
ahead, sorry. No, what
Okay.
I was going to say, so so one of the things you mentioned that's actually, I can speak to it with an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that people, we got used to working from home. Now, personally, I've been working from home most of my life. But with that said, the majority of the world has not been working out of their homes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're saying there is, now we got used to working from home, right? We got used to not having the types of conversations we used to have in the past, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
those adjustments were not made. So even when people went back to work, right, okay, saying, okay, now I'm going back to work, you've changed as a person. And I want to speak to it a little bit, right? Because uh, i I want to believe I'm a social person, right? People say I'm very social, and we've had conversations along the way the last few days getting ready for
Mm-hmm.
this. And you probably know me as a chatty person too, right? But I can tell you that when I go on the trail, I used to look out to chat with people. Like, if I'm the kind of person you may or may not want to sit next to on a plane, because I don't want to let you sleep, right? Because I want to have this conversation. I'm
That's
bored. I don't know. I haven't flown in a while, but I don't know if that's changed, because when I'm going out now, I'm not sure if I'm necessarily looking out or having a conversation. And now that I've been doing a lot of these podcasts, I've started to rely on a device which doesn't have a life or a heart to having these conversations with, right? So I know it was you mentioned when we spoke the other day that if when you go back to a workplace or some other locations, you would make friends like in no time. But
yes,
now you said it took you a bit more effort in making that connection, because people want to sort of maintain that sort of a distance. So is it fair to say that there is like a sort of a cultural shift,
shift.
if you will?
Yes, definitely. It is, and the job stress and uncertainty also arose a lot after pandemic, because the layoffs have been as happening throughout. So people are not even certain that how long are we going to stay with this company or with this set of people. So and plus we have a hybrid model now after pandemic.
Right.
So somebody is going on a Friday, somebody is going on a Monday. They don't have a fixed day for any particular team. So if see for making any kind of connect and discussing your issues with anybody, even at work or personal, you have to meet, you have to talk, and
Exactly.
you have to be open, right? So if you're not making, so it all goes in circles, right, in chains. So if I am not going to work on like the regular days which other people are coming, and I'm not meeting the same set of people, I am not opening up to the same person, I will not be able to share anything about my personal or professional life so easily with anybody. It's with
Correct.
everybody, it's with every human. So to make a connect, you have to meet people and you have to meet them regularly. You just can't go to work one day and meet somebody and start sharing everything, and next day you start sharing everything with some other. It's not possible. Because at work also you will, like if you have a group of 50 team members, you will only get that kind of a feeling or a connect with only one or two, not everybody, especially at work.
Correct.
Like
Right.
I am telling you personally with my experience, I have worked with this company which I am with for 1.5 years. It was all pandemic, and the hybrid model started only in January, so we started going to work. I have not made connect with even a single person, and now I am leaving this company. I have like nobody I would think that will be my friend or my colleague or my companion for quite some time. I really
So you,
don't have
so in
that
other
kind
words,
of connect.
the relationships that you're used to building working in
Yes.
an organization, I think it's a very important point, right? I was going to ask you something else, but what given what you mentioned, I want to actually deviate a little bit, right? So you mentioned a couple of things. I want to touch upon two things. You mentioned now this hybrid model, and this is
Yes.
where the topic is as different as it is. Like I said at the top of the call, it affects all of us, because in any aspect of what we do, this is prime. You're working with humans, right?
Yes.
So this makes a
Absolutely.
difference. But I'm just going to take a software example, folks, only because that's where my experience is limited. But what Vidhi is saying here obviously is not specific to any industry, right? It's pretty generic, but I'm just going to take software as examples to make the connection to challenges that I've particularly seen, right?
But
So
I
you
think
had mentioned.
the point which I touched here is the uncertainty. I think that has majorly hit the software industry. I am very specific to the uncertainties in the software industry because, like, I am in the legal industry. Few of my friends are in a different industry, pharmaceutical. It is not hit that bad. But with software professionals, I have seen that they have a lot of uncertainty now after pandemic. That they are not even certain that how long they have served for a company for 12 years and all of a sudden they're out of it, and they really don't want to make that kind of a connect again with the company and with those people. Now they're going to a new company,
Wow.
right? Yeah, this is happening because they're not even certain when the company is going to hit you back and telling you on an email that you are no longer required from tomorrow. So I think the software people specifically, if you talk about, are really hit bad. First thing, they have a lot of job stress already, because of the work. Although we also have, but still,
Right.
I think IT sector has a lot of work stress. They have long working hours. They are doing a lot. And now AI, ML, everything is coming into picture. They have to upgrade themselves, study all the time, getting themselves into the industry and meeting those standards that you have to stay in the industry. So one thing is this already they're suffering through a lot of job stress, and then there's uncertainty. lot of things are happening in their head, and then the burnouts, the workload, everything is impacting to no connection.
So Vidhi,
It
I'm
is.
gonna stop because you said some very important things there. Each one is an item, a category in itself, but I'm going to take one or two. And then as we
Hmm.
get deeper into the conversation today, or hopefully, I do a fair enough job that I can, request you to come back and share more of your thoughts. But there's a lot of these topics.
Yeah.
Let's go one by one, right? You mentioned something interesting that I know. You said even though this affects a lot of industries, in your perspective, you're seeing it affects some industries more than other industries, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm not worried so much about empirical data, but even as
Hmm.
an individual, a professional who's working, with other professionals, and you have friends and family, like you mentioned, in the business of building software. You've seen that it being a difference between some industries and software. You mentioned uh, the stress levels are there in a lot of the industries, like, and you said that correctly, so right, everybody's got a lot of things to do. We juggle a number of things, our hustles, and we do a number of jobs these days, right? But
Yeah.
let me go back to it because you mentioned software, and I want to go back. So and since you are a legal professional and not in software, I can ask you this question, right? So there's no bias in your response since you're
Yeah.
actually not doing this on a daily basis from a software standpoint, right? Like, is it more the market, like for instance this year, like in the US, at least the economy, we've had, whatever the layoffs, and the tech layoffs continue. Are you more talking about the stability in positions? That could be one. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but I want to throw these points and then have you speak to it, right? One is how stable your positions are, like how replaceable you are, right?
Yeah.
You talked AI, but let's get to it a little bit later because it's a broad topic. So
Brought that
let's.
back. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this answer minus the current situation of AI and everything that's happening, right? So is it more uh, the stability of your job, right? What's happening? Do I have a job? Am I going to have to switch, etc., etc.? Two, you mentioned long working hours. That's the topic. So I want you to talk to between industries from what you've seen. Have you seen any disproportionate number of working hours between one industry and the other, right? And the third item I want to touch upon is commute, but that I'm assuming with these that is probably not different between these industries, right? But I don't want to speak for you, but I want to say that if you could just take these two or three items and
Yeah.
shed more light on how you see the separations between these items.
So let's start with the first thing, which is the stability, how replaceable you are. I think, like, I am very people person, and I always believe that a company, a team, a manager, they all should be very employee centric. And trust me, I have been told n number of times by few of my managers and directors that you should be more company centric and not employee centric. You should be thinking about revenues and profits and everything. If you really want to grow up in the hierarchy and in the ladder, you should be good with Excels, you should be good with P&Ls and all that kind of stuff. But still, I am not that because I can't be that. I'm not that kind of a person who's always looking for profits and losses and revenues. So I'm more like into employee centric, right? So stability, I think for the stability part, AI is an entirely separate thing. It is very new. I don't know how replaceable it will make people or not. I don't think it will ever make that. But still, if you talk about stability, I think that comes from connections. Everything I think is human based since we are humans, right? So if you really think that you are going to be here for a very long time, I think it is not because of the company. It is not because of the designation or the money. It's all about the people you are working with, the connections you have made. And that's why I have seen in my particular organization that a lot of people really don't want to move out for after 6 years because they are so comfortable with the set of people. Work, obviously, they are doing. They are comfortable with the work. They have been doing it for 3, 4 years. They have already become SEOs and experts in their work. But they don't want to leave people because they have gained certain kind of trust with them,
But
right?
Vidhi, let me interrupt you there, right? That makes sense,
Yeah.
but I want to go back to the very specific aspect that I'm trying to get to as well, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
is that different in your mind between, let's take any two industries, let's take two industries. The second one
Mm-hmm.
honestly doesn't matter for this purpose, but the first one being software, right? You mentioned that there is a difference there, and I'm trying to understand as somebody who's in the business of building software, what in your mind is it more are we saying that there's more competition in the space of software compared to say other professions? is that
Yes,
is that
definitely there
possible?
is. Because, like, if I'll talk about my industry, our industry and our companies are very limited, right? So there is, even though there is competition, you will find people here and there, somewhere from, if I go to a company, there are a lot of people who are from the other company, which I've already worked with. So, but with IT, you have a lot of companies in the picture. Competition is too high, and instability is there a lot after pandemic. Because of the layoffs, people are not willing to give their 100% in any kind of work, in any kind of connections, because they are not even sure if something like that happens again, or even if pandemic doesn't hit you, something is happening like in the industry, like pandemic has left, like it's over for everybody, but still the layoffs are going on. So I,
Right,
I
right.
personally feel the friends from my circle, they have been into the industry of software for 15 years, 16 years. My brother is there in the IT company. He doesn't want to go to work. I was like, your office is in Pune. I understand. You should go and you should meet people. You should make connections. He's like, why? I'm not even sure for how long are we going to stay with this company. I mean, it's
So this
three,
is
4 years,
so
okay?
this is important, right? So just to make a point here, right? So clearly there is a difference, right? So
Yes.
as much as there are similarities between industries in the space of software, it sounds to me, at least based on the last few minutes,
Hmm.
that there are items that you may have to address at an industry level, right? I think
Absolutely.
we're talking about it. Now let me add one more thing, right? You mentioned competition, and I think I can come up with an example. I think. See, you're in the as a lawyer, you have to graduate, get a degree, pass the bar, and then you become a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Krish cannot compete with Vidhi tomorrow just because he likes law. I have to go through the
Hmm.
whole process again. So there is a fair bit of groundwork I have to do before I can actually become any sort of a competition, right? Now I want people, I'm going to state some of it is obvious, some may or may not be, at least depending on which industry you're in, right? Imagine software development, right? There are companies right now as we speak in India, in the US, where a college degree is not required, correct? You don't have
Hmm.
to have a college degree, and I would argue rightfully so, but that's a different conversation. You could be in high school, you could be in elementary, or I believe it's high school. You're trained after high school, and you get placed in those positions, and you're writing software, you're a product manager, you're a developer, you're a tester, you can fill all these roles. So you don't have to now compare that to somebody who was in college for a long time, right?
Hmm.
I was in college for a long time, a long, long, long time. I don't know why, but I was in it. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have wanted to be. And now you then go back to work, and now you figure, okay, if somebody is able to do what you're doing just after high school,
Hmm.
why in the world did you have to borrow money? And college is a very expensive proposition, right?
Expensive.
Now
Absolutely.
I'm not sitting here telling people now to go to college, right? It's not for me to make the decision. And especially when you happen to have a degree or more than one, it might sound very hypocritical. But sometimes you do some things, and then you read, and hindsight is always 2020, right? Whether you do it and then you
Yes.
realize whether, okay, does it make sense or does it not make sense, right? So I want to just
Absolutely.
say barrier to entry in software is, I think, abysmally low, just by virtue of how the industry is, right? Which could also be a reason why there is high competition, right? Which means, like you mentioned earlier, not in the last segment but the one before that, you mentioned people are worried about things changing all the time, right? Okay, now there is this new thing coming about. How do I deal with it? How do I upskill myself, right? And I remember I mentioned, I told you, let's not go to AI just as yet, and I'm guilty of bringing that
Hmm.
up, but I want to go even before that. If you probably know of the JavaScript frameworks that change all the time, right? Even when nothing changed dramatically, those things changed every three
Change.
months or every so often something else comes about. It's dramatically different because we started our web application on a particular tech stack, right? We did a lot of analysis. We figured this is the best way to go, and we went live. 6 months after we went live, something else transpired, and
Yeah.
there was other stacks that became a whole lot more popular, right? Now we have made those adjustments along the way, sure, but you cannot rebuild everything you've done. It doesn't make
Everything.
any sense, right? You don't want to rebuild everything because it doesn't add any value. No matter how much due diligence you do, things are going to change. Imagine someone doing something before everything about chat gpt came about, right? All the talk about generative AI and machine learning and LLMs and all the chatter we are having today. It's been in the works for a while, but this year everybody's talking. I mean, I've not gotten into any conversation in any
Mhm.
podcast on any topic without AI being mentioned in the first 10 minutes of that call. I promise you that, right? Because it's here lock, stock, and barrel. Correct? We have to get ourselves equipped to it. But based on what you're mentioning here, it can affect one industry more than the other. Now, I don't know which ones it's going to affect in what time frames, but we all have to be ready. And your point there is, people have these levels of uncertainty, and some industries might stoke those uncertainties a lot more than others. And now everybody is like, why do I have to take the effort to go to work, socialize with Vidhi, make friends with her, and then poof, something changes and we are doing something else altogether, right? So the motivation is lacking. I mean, I know it's a long-winded summary, but did I more or less sort of summarize what we were trying
Yeah.
to talk about there, Vidhi?
See, we can actually make out the difference because we have seen the industry and the workplaces and life before pandemic. Many years we have spent when pandemic has not hit people, and now after pandemic has hit, and I can see the changes. So I can see it. I can visualize, and I can just make a note, every note of it, that how people have changed over the years. you know like initially we used to meet, we used to, even when we were working and we used to go out, we everybody has somebody or the other to talk everything about. Yeah, you can see a companionship between either of the two friends at work, that you can make out that these two are very good friends and they discuss everything from professional to personal. Now I can see, people are more, technology savvy kind of. They're always on Instagram. They are more interested in using Instagram, talking to random people instead of just the person sitting next to you who can be your actual help. They are more happy getting more followers on Instagram than making more genuine friends. So I think that has changed a lot. And the the generation which is coming now, and like 10 years younger to me, they have entirely different norms of life. They have, you know different kind of mindset, I would say. I might be very old school in those kind of things. Maybe sometimes I feel that, I'm very old school, connecting with everybody. Why do you have, and my friends are like, why do you have to connect with everybody, really? So yesterday, I'll tell you very, very simple example. So yesterday was my last day with this organization. Okay. So I have this habit of, whenever I leave any kind of organization, I want to make sure that I thank each and everybody who has helped me in some or the other way in, in this journey at work. So I was writing this email, and there was girl sitting next to me. She was like 12 years younger to me or something. So she was sitting next to me, and I was writing whole of this sign of email with gratitude. And she was like, "Why do you have gratitude for these kind of people?" I was like, "What kind of people?" I was like, I have to say thanks. I am at least thankful for something because everybody has taught me something here. Right. Okay. And then I wrote this whole email, and I was done. And then there is a group channel where everybody is there from the whole team. And I was planning that before I give the laptop to the IT, I will say a special thanks to everybody that I'm finally signing off. And she literally held my hand and she said, "There is no need now. You have already dropped an email. It's more than sufficient." And 10 years back, if you will see, people were actually willing to write a lot. They actually wanted to write long emails of 2 pages, I would say, thanking everybody, tagging everybody. And I was like, I think that's why my writing skills are getting ruined, because nobody wants me to write long, lengthy things about
Anymore,
anybody.
yeah.
I was like, okay. And then I literally stopped. I was like, when she is not feeling the need of it, maybe others won't even read it because they are all the same age. Or maybe my director might read it, or my manager would read it, that, okay, she has finally signed off and everything. But I can see the drift and the changes in the thought process of my generation, like at 10
I
years,
have to,
not, I would
let
say.
me, this is awesome. That's a beautiful story, right? Let
Yeah.
me add a couple of things just for folks
Mm.
watching, right? Now, people are located in different parts of the world when you're watching this content, but as humans, we have a lot of things in common, and we have, we are unique in many ways as well, right? And you also change depending on, based on the environment you live in, for instance, right? So when I moved to the US, I was very, very young. So my memories of India growing up, they say when you migrate, time stops, right? So you always think of a country, of a place at the time you actually moved out of that place, right? The place keeps changing, but you don't remember. I always think of India as the time I moved out, even though you visit, not as frequently as my parents would like, but that's a different story. But you always think of it as how it was when you moved out, but that's not always the case. The reason I mentioned that is in our previous conversations with you, you said you've traveled quite a bit. You have family living in Florida and different parts, so you've seen different cultures, right? But I'll tell you one thing which might be slightly different. You had mentioned that people go to work, you get to know your coworkers, you get very personal with them. It makes complete sense, but I might want to add my 2 cents there, because I've not worked in India. I've not had the pleasure yet. Hopefully, one day I will. So all of my work has been in the US, right? I went to school in India, and then I came here, went to school, and then went to work. I've heard from people having interacted and worked with folks in India, right, and also other parts of the world. There is also cultural difference, right? Naturally so, right? There's cultural differences. So some of what you mentioned, in my opinion, I could be wrong, might resonate a little bit more with folks in certain parts of the world than in other parts of the world, right? In other words, the levels of formalities may have been different, is what I'm trying to say, right? So, but the fact that you mentioned that it was really, really easy for you to like make a conversation with people and stuff like that. Now you have to make a little bit more of an effort. And this example of this email, which I think is actually a very good example, because I've moved plenty of jobs in my career, and I'm not succinct in any stretch in anything I do, right? It takes me like 6 minutes to get to the topic. And my son always tells me, with the podcast, when I'm doing is like 12-minute podcast of technical items, can you just get to it in the 30 seconds, not after like 6 minutes, right? It takes me. So my resignation letters were very long as well. I will tell you. But like you mentioned, people are not probably going to read it, because we are living in a world where you are watching, consuming content that's 20 seconds, right? Or maybe 50 seconds or 40 seconds, right? Attention
Absolutely.
spans have dramatically plummeted
Dramatic.
to the
Yeah.
point like I don't know how many people are able to go to the theater and cinema and sit in a 3 hour movie, right? And we've changed. YouTube has changed the way we approach life, the
Yeah.
perspectives of how we approach it. So this, I want to call this session segment one, right? I want to say I'm going to pause and then pick up on session two, because I want to recap what we've done so far. We've sort of introduced ourselves as people living in two different parts of the world, a little bit about our each of us, talked about the challenges of what you've personally seen and professionally seen, right? Before, during, and after the pandemic. Uh, how all of this leads into mental health, right? I know I mentioned mental health at the top of the call, never said that during the rest of the conversation, right? But they're not disparate items, right? Everything that you mention, I presume, is going to actually cause potential issues, probably not
Issues.
so much in scientific terms, because I'm not in that space, but I'm saying in layman's terms, if I'm not having any interactions, if I'm not talking to anybody, if I'm just sitting in a corner and doing work all day long and all week long, I don't know how my mental state of mind is going to be at that my state of mind is going to be at that point of time, right? So I think this leads us to the items that I had specifically, and what we had discussed prior to the conversation, as to what are some of these issues. How do you start addressing, before you start addressing the issues, how do you start recognizing some of these issues, right? That's probably where I want to start the second call with Vidhi, unless you want to add something before I hit pause in this conversation.
No, I think we have pretty much talked like this has been a great introduction. So this is absolutely right, Krish, that everything what we spoke about is leading towards mental health, right? If people are getting into isolation or they are not talking to each other, even at home, I have seen I have 5 people at home, and when we sit like initially, with like post COVID, everybody was like we still watch TV together, but at like people were not having a lot of mobiles and Insta and social networking and everything. That was not happening like now it is happening, right? So everybody who's sitting right next to me, like at night when everybody has the mobile on, and I'm like I ensure that you keep down your mobiles, talk to each other, and I'm throwing all the mobiles into the dustbin right now. And like for last one week, everybody is like they know at 9 she will start shouting. that, I'll throw the mobile. So they have finally decided that we'll not touch the mobiles after 9 or 9:30 until it's absolutely important, right? We understand, kids have their friends and they have their own life. But, this structure which you are living in, I think it's the most important part of your life.
Mm.
Nothing matters more than that. And during the pandemic, I saw people actually got close. We were talking about that,
Mm.
before and after. So I said I'll pick during later. During pandemic, I saw a lot of people connected more. They finally got some time to connect with their families. That was one positive thing which I think pandemic gave to us, that we had a lot of more family time. They started playing
Right.
cards and Ludo and all the, things we used to do when we were really young. So my kids also got to know that, oh, you guys used to play these kind of games as well. Now they have Uno, they have uh, PUBG, and I don't know what stuff they play on mobiles. I really hate all of them. I just can't spend like so many hours on games on phone. I know women are very different from men, but I have seen a lot of women, spending a lot of time in Clash of Clans and something. I don't know what was that. But that period, that pandemic period, really brought everybody very close. So that thing is very positive. I think that happened with pandemic, but that was initially, when it passed. It was 6 months. Women were really into cooking. They were cooking different kind of dishes. They were enjoying. In the Now I see my Facebook and I see my Facebook 3 years back. Dramatic changes.
Wow. Wow.
Nobody's there on Facebook, sharing pictures of what they have cooked. It was like they were so excited that finally they have got some time with their family. So they were preparing, cooking everything for their family. And now when I ask them, yeah, it was all pandemic. I think we are done. I really don't want to cook anymore. I'm like, what? Why? And then she was like initially it was so much fun spending time cooking and doing whatever you were always planning to cook for the family. And now we have done all of that. Yeah, nothing is left. We are not born chefs, and we are not here to learn any kind of culinary skills. So I was like,
you
okay.
know,
And
you
I
know,
can actually think about
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
fact that Facebook, how it has changed from pandemic to present. So I can see the changes. So that's why I'm telling you that drastic changes have coming, like in the post, pre, during phases of pandemic. It's a lot of fun. It's fun also. It's sad also in a way, and that they brought some happy moments. A lot of people got together again. A lot of people got divorced also. If they realized that he or she is not the someone I was looking for as a partner. So a lot of
Is
things
with
have happened.
you know it's I'll give you an example, right? So it's not super related, but I think it'll be hopefully funny enough. So I was asking my wife, she works from home as well.
Mhm.
Some time ago, we've not gone anywhere. We don't travel much at all. I feel like I need a break, I need a vacation. And she goes, Krish, that's a great idea, you should go somewhere. I was like, what do you mean you should go somewhere? And then I started laughing. It was really funny because I then realized, Meena, when when we were newly married, it's like, okay, we need to take a break and go somewhere. Where
Yeah.
should we both? Where should we all go somewhere, right? Now,
Yeah.
she's, you see so much of each other. So I guess the working from home again, depending on how big or small the spaces are, right? You know, they say familiarity breeds contempt, right? I
Yeah.
mean, contempt is a strong word, but even if you're in the family, you love each other, but everyone needs a bit of space, right? You need
Space.
that
Yeah.
space to be able to think and execute and do things that may or may not be with people, your kith and kin, for instance, right? So what you mentioned earlier, going back there, was work is important. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more, because at least 40 hours a week, right? And a lot of times a lot more than 40 hours a week, right? Like you mentioned, people are working long hours, really, right?
We
So you're
also
spending
do. It's not that, I would specifically say that the software industry is working a lot. Like we also have times when we really, sit at 8:30 in the morning and we actually get up at 9:30 at night. So sometimes it happens with everybody. Like, sometimes the work is too much. You just can't get it done within those 8, 9 hours. And you have other things also to do. It's not that you will keep on sitting and keep on working on one particular thing. That also stagnates your mind. You're just not
absolutely
able
right.
to do it.
No, absolutely. But
So,
just, yeah,
and
no,
cultural
totally.
difference also, as you mentioned, Krish, I think it's a very, spot on thing that, yes, whatever I am talking is more, from India perspective, because I have been born, brought, and lived throughout my life in India. So I can actually talk about that. But since my family is in the US, I know these kind of bonding which I am talking about at work doesn't really happen maybe in the US or other countries maybe, because India is more like they want to connect with everybody. They want to feel connected and they want to talk about everything.
There's
Like them.
dramatic, that's a very good point.
Yeah,
There's dramatic differences
exactly.
in social needs. I can tell you
Needs.
because my
Yes.
wife is Indian, but she's from Malaysia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't talk much at all. And people tell me it's because I use up all of the time talking, so she doesn't have much room to talk. It maybe is true, but even otherwise, right? It's just different. So I remember now that we've been married for a while, uh, I pretend to understand her a little bit more than I did years
Finally.
ago. Yeah, but it's true though, because the need to having these conversations is different for different people, and
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
part of the challenge as well. Correct? What if
Absolutely.
you're somebody who needs these corners? I know I said I'm going to hit pause, but I cannot. This is way too interesting for me to hit pause. So I'm going to keep going till the tool starts complaining or something. So what if let's take two people, right? One person who may or may not have the need for that level of interaction, so they react to a certain thing differently. But there's another person who actually needs that interaction. They want to be talking to people. They want to be having these interactions. So let me ask you a question. If I play the devil's advocate and told you, Vidhi, okay, you know what? I want to have these interactions. We've had a couple of interactions over the last few days getting ready for this podcast, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between turning on a camera and talking to Vidhi on camera and actually being in the physical location as Vidhi works and working with Vidhi? How would you describe that? Because that is a it's very difficult to sometimes explain the difference. So I want to know your perspective on what would you, in your mind, what are some of the differences? Are there any differences? If so, what are the differences?
So, you want to know that, if you are with me physically here, like working with me, and you and me speaking on, like right now we are doing a
Work
video
pairing
call.
and collaborating and pairing.
Yeah,
In software, we do this pairing and we hop on,
yeah.
write the code together and all that stuff, right? So, what do you think, in your mind, is the difference between these two things?
Um, I like my initial thought would be that there is more connect when you are physically present with somebody. It adds more to the connection. But like I am that kind of a person that I can make a connect even if you are sitting in the US or any part of the world. I can make that connect. But yes, physicality do adds on to that kind of a connect. So I think the only difference you would notice when you will meet me probably someday, that you will have a better connect. But if you and me can make this connect here, I think it's going to be even better when you will meet me.
Correct. The only reason
So
I mentioned
yeah,
that, right? I was just playing the devil's advocate because
yeah.
my mom obviously is not happy that I'm not there or not there in
Mhm.
India frequently enough, right? I tell her, well, we have these conversations, not always video because I can't hold the phone all the time. These
Mm.
phones are so heavy. It's like holding a brick, right? iPhone's like you're carrying a brick with you. It's not
Yeah.
light at all. So, but we have these audio conversations all the time, and I always wonder what. But in her mind, it's not even the same. She's like, no, it's
Mm.
not. It's completely different, right? As a
Different. Yeah.
mother, it's completely different for her, right? But I tell her, the pros and cons of technology and this advancement, right? On one side, sure, we are looking at devices, we are spending all our times and energies there. And I'll give you one more example. We watch content, say for instance, we are three of us in the family. We let's say we're sitting on the couch and watching content. We are watching three different pieces of content, right? Because we can't seem to agree on one thing to watch. So
One
we
thing.
can't watch a movie, we can't watch anything, right? My son wants to watch, he wants to watch. I want to watch what I want to watch. My wife wants to watch what she wants to watch, right? We figured the only way we can coexist is by allowing each of us to watch what they want to watch. But and then my wife had this question. It's a very interesting question. She's like, Krish, I don't understand the difference. We go to the theater, we all sit, we are
Sit.
watching something, correct? Sure, we are watching the same piece of content, but how much interaction do we really have during the movie? Not a whole lot, right? So there should be no difference. So as much as I love debating, I couldn't win that one. I was like, maybe she has a point. Maybe there isn't a difference, right?
Yeah.
So I'm giving these examples because things have changed. And the only thing that's going to be consistent is they're going to continue changing, right? Just like when we thought a lot of things have changed, it's going to stabilize. You mentioned AI is here, it's not going anywhere, right? It's only a question of, I just mentioned, there's three kinds of people I always say, right, with AI. One who super stoked about it, ready to get going, want to learn what's happening 10 years down the road, right? There's another who are like, I want to learn it, but I want to take my, maybe there's more than three, but let's say I want to learn, take my time. I don't want to like go too fast or too slow. I want to be able to digest the learnings as I go, not rush into those learnings, right? Don't want to kill myself in learning something that might be completely new or intimidating, right? And I also have friends who belong to another category who are like, I'm going to let this thing pass. I was like, it is not going to pass. It is here.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, no, the way I'm going to let it pass, I'm going to find like, okay, however I'm in my demographic of how long I've worked on, for instance, right? Let's say I'm going to be in the workforce for another 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. Can I see it through? I'm like, 20 years is a long time to see
Long
anything
time.
through, right? You can't see it through. So I
I
don't
feel
know
you.
if there's any room for denial here, right? You're going to have to accept that it's here to change ways. It's hopefully going to improve lives than otherwise with all the checks and balances that have to be in place. And I think EU passed some laws recently. I was reading something this morning,
Mm-hmm.
very related to what was happening in the AI space in Europe. So laws are potentially going to change, and a lot of these technology is going to improve.
Definitely, definitely. The laws will definitely. I think India is also planning to put up some laws on AI.
So what would you my question to you here is going to be a different question. So things are going to change, right? We can't
Yes.
stop it. We don't want to stop it. We want to absorb these changes, be part of this change. So you couldn't tell somebody, like if you told people, hey, you know what, put your phones down, don't do anything, come back to work, socialize like you did 5 years ago, it might not happen. You know what I mean, right? It just may
Yes.
not happen. So, okay, there is a problem, right? The first thing is, how do you identify that somebody needs, not in a medical way, because it's not a medical
Mm-hmm.
conversation, in a more less technical, less medical manner? If you're a person, you're like, I feel like this person is not happy, or if they need
Mm-hmm.
some help, right? How do you how do you tell, how can we be able to help other people, right? We are not all people in this industry of having these certifications and degrees, but let's say we all have good intention to help anybody to the extent we can help. How do you go about it?
So I'll tell you how I do it. Like you can only do this with people who you know first thing. You can only try everything when you know somebody. If somebody like I'm going to a new workplace from Monday. I don't know how people are going to be if somebody actually needs a help or will talk to me or will not talk to me. But yes, after so many years of meeting people, talking with them, and exploring different kind of aspects and human behaviors I have seen over the years. So I can see a shift in their behaviors. If somebody I know for 10, 12 years, or maybe 2, 3 years, I know that, he or she is this kind of a person and they really don't talk about anything or they want to talk about anything. It actually reflects slowly and gradually in the way they behave. Like, for example, I'll give you. So, one of my friends, I met her here and we used to work together in the last company as well. So, she was very, collaborative, and she would always give suggestions in the meetings that so she was very active in giving suggestions even though we were all working on work from home mode, but still she was active in the meeting. Now when we have come here and we have joined this company, I see that there is a drastic change in her behavior. Drastic, I would not even say that very minimal, but she doesn't speak in the meetings at all. She doesn't give any suggestions, she doesn't talk about anything. And then finally I thought of asking her, although it's none of my business that what is happening, because I have met her like maybe twice or thrice in this organization, not even the previous one. So I thought I'll just ask her that if something is bothering her, something like that. I know she wants to talk about something, but as I told you, that the connect is not that great this time with anybody. We haven't met like 7, 8 times either. So I think that lack of connect did not allow her to speak to me about anything. I know she wants to. I can, make her in the conversations talk about something, tits and bits, and,
Right.
give me hints. I can see that, but she's not willing. So, so until and unless people talk to you and they're willing to talk, you just can't do that. But you can make out, especially if you know somebody. And if you don't
I'm
know somebody, like I'm talking to you for the very first time, like we spoke like 2, 3 weeks back. So if I'm talking, like, I can actually make out after a few conversations or after a few meetings, even on the video, that he is not himself today. There is something bothering him or her, or they are in a different state of a mind altogether here. So
Okay,
you can
Vidhi,
make out. It's not that.
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant. You bring up something really really important, right? So I'm gonna
Hmm.
pause for a moment and then
Sure.
say this slowly. Okay, this is you mentioned something important. You said, okay, you can't do this to people you don't know. So the
Hmm.
way we can help each other is at least by helping or trying to help people who we already know, right? you
No.
you
Yeah.
know a person for a certain period of time, you understand how they, what their social interactions
Hmm.
look like, and when you spot these anomalies, again, not in any empirical way, but as a human, you spot these anomalies, you feel like that's some sort of an intervention, right? You're like, hey, can I offer this help? So
Yeah.
that's brilliant, because to me now it's clearer, right? It's not like you're saying, hey, I can pop into this work on, your new positions on Monday and start offering help. That won't
Exactly.
work, right? That won't work out at all. But where you're saying is, the people, friends, family, even acquaintances, if they exhibit some changes, you could offer. Now there's two very difficult, in my mind, difficult questions I'm going to ask you there, right? The first question is, you see some differences, correct? Now, before I go to the second question, the first question is, how do you ask? I'm not talking about broaching the subject
Hmm.
I want to actually separate my first and second question, so I'm trying to make sure how can I make it very very clearly different, right? You spot some anomalies, you want to help out, you have good intent here, right? What if, and you're saying it's not one day, if they just don't feel up to it on one day, you're not going to go and ask because it doesn't make any sense. They just had a
Yeah.
bad, they just slept on the wrong, woke up on the wrong side of the bed, completely fine, right? You move on. But you see a pattern here, and then you're like, you know what, maybe this I can possibly help, right? First question is, it takes a certain personality. I mean, a lot of us might want to help,
Hmm.
but not all of us can bring ourselves to posing that question, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how, I mean, one is personality, I'm going to throw that out, right? But outside of that, how should we do that? I mean, what are some not so good ways, some good ways to approach and broach that subject with that person that you actually do want to help?
Okay, so somebody like me, who has a personality that they can talk to people and they can. In frankly, I also don't have never asked anybody upfront that that maybe he or she is not seeking any kind of help, and they are really not into it. It's just a bad day, as you said, right? So it's not necessary that everybody is suffering through something, and they might take it in an offensive way as well. That excuse me, I am not suffering from anything. Why are you, even thinking that I am suffering from any kind of a situation or something, right? So it's not possible that you just go out and offer your help. It's just with the conversations that you can just make out. So this is with me, I can talk to people. I can sit for like 30-40 minutes, talk to them, and if I feel like, then I can give some indirect hints that you can always talk to me, and I'm always there. You have my back. Like I write, like today is one of my very closest friend's birthday. So today, I don't know, on the FaceTime I could see that she is not that happy as she is usually on her birthday. So I just wrote her that, I wish you the happiest of birthday, and always remember that you have my back. You can always come and talk. So she knows that she has me, and I'm sure if something is bothering her and she is not so happy about something, she'll come back to me herself. This is for somebody whom I know and who knows me. They'll come back to me. For instance, I am not Vidhi. I am somebody else who is not, you know, who cannot connect that easily, or they are not in the zone of speaking a lot with people. So let's take that example. But at least the person you are talking to, you know that person, right? You know that something is so. There are always indirect hints that you can give them, even if you are not an extrovert, you are not into public speaking, or you are not a good orator kind of a person, or you're not good into it. But even if you are not in that zone, but still you can offer help indirectly. There are always
Correct. Okay,
ways
no,
you
I
can
think,
always
yeah,
help them. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it
It's
makes
never
sense, right?
never
But
ever necessary to give, and especially in the mental health, you will find people, they feel offended of things that So I like I think last year, I think that was a not so good year for me. I would not say bad, but not so good year. And I felt that I am suffering from depression. And my sister and these kind of people, brothers, sisters, parents, they have this uh, kind of, you can say, the right to say anything to you. She came up front to me and she was like, I think you need a therapist. And I was like, maybe in the US, therapists and therapies are very popular, but frankly telling, Krish, it's not that in India. If you go and tell somebody that you need a therapy, they will think that you are thinking that they have gone crazy or they are mad people.
I was
But
going to
it's
come
not
to
true.
that, but keep going. That's a very important topic you're bringing up there.
Yeah, it's not that, I have, so we were talking about cultures as well. So I know my sister taking my mother to therapies for some time because obviously she is with her. She has lived 40 years here and now she's in the US. There is a cultural shift. There are not a lot of people to talk to, not a lot of people to hang around with. Or she, whatever, things she used to do in India starting from the morning, she doesn't have that kind of a routine there. So obviously she felt the need of speaking to somebody who is not a mother or a daughter or a relative. So she understood after 5 years of staying in the US, my sister is there for 12, 13 years.
Right.
So she understands the concept of therapies and she actually gave me, few links to the therapist. And sometimes it is true that, you know, your your own people are very judgmental. If you
You
tell
know,
them things,
no, Vidhi, I'm going to interrupt you there because you made
yes.
some really two important points. And before I
Hmm.
forget, I want to just, sorry, interrupt, but I want to talk
No,
about
no,
it,
no
right?
problem.
The first thing you mentioned was uh, I have two aspects to that question, right? I should really
Hmm.
jot down notes. As an engineer, you always want to
Hmm.
quantify everything, but not
Yeah,
everything in life is quantifiable. It's not
quantified.
always zeros
Absolutely.
and ones, right? No, the
Yeah.
soft skills, right? I just want to summarize what you said earlier. By there is a soft skill that some of us have, some of us may not have, right?
May not have.
If you're blessed to have that skill, then you have the courage to want to help out and broach that subject, you are well equipped. But if not, it's going to be a lot more challenging, right? Let me leave it at that. There's no quantifiable way to say this is how exactly you should approach it. But the second point that you mentioned was how there's two-part question. The first part is different countries handle this very differently, right? Again, it's a
Different.
very
Yeah.
cultural thing as well, like you mentioned, right? If you are, if people might say if you go up and offer this help, like you mentioned in India, and if people are not used to having these
Yeah.
conversations, it might come across as this is very, very wrong, right? Are you bringing up a very delicate subject here, right? So I have two questions, but the first thing I want to ask is how I've seen when I watch these Indian stand-ups, like I watch my native language stand-ups, and over the years, stand-up is the shows have become more popular, right? They were not that popular
Yeah.
earlier,
Very
but
popular.
now
Yeah.
I've had a lot of these where they make references to this, right? One of them actually says, he had a full segment on this and said people who need help should find help. So I feel like it is being discussed a little bit more, but
More. Yeah.
sitting like smack there, you might be able to speak to it better. Like, how common do you think the awareness of such a potential problem is? Like, if I went and spoke to like 100 people in Delhi, I know it's not empirical numbers. How many do you think would recognize and understand this idea of there being something called mental health that's important? Is it common or is it not that common?
It is still not that common. Trust me. See, people do understand that, there are mental issues, but they, I would say tag it to some particular thing. For example, they know what depression is. Actually, nobody knows what depression is. I might be depressed, but you will never get a hint of it. Even I might not know that I'm suffering from depression. Somebody else could tell that, I think Vidhi is depressed, or maybe she's suffering from some kind of anxiety, but I just can't figure it out. Because in India, like, I'll tell you why this is opening up, because a lot of celebrities are coming out of it, out with it. Like recently, Deepika said, and then this Alia Bhatt's sister came up with it, Shaheen, that she has been suffering from depression for long. And then she wrote a book as well. Deepika came out with it. A lot of people know that Priyanka also tried to commit suicide or something happened. I don't know. I don't know. It's a rumor or it's a true thing. I really don't know. But a lot of celebrities are coming out and telling about their experiences because as a layman, as an audience, I know Deepika is amazing. She has an amazing life. She has got nothing to be depressed of. If she is depressed, that means there is something called depression.
So the
But what
point,
is
like,
it?
Vidhi, let me interrupt you there. So the point you're saying there is also important, which is if you're powerful, popular, wealthy, and you seem like you've checked all the boxes and you've got
Hmm.
everything, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have these issues, right? You're
Exactly.
saying even people who on paper, hey, I've got all the money, I've got all the fame, I've got all the popularity and access. So it's something beyond that, right? It's
Beyond
so,
it. Yeah.
but I have a question there. Do people react to it saying, do people buy it? In other words, even though it's so true that you could have everything and yet not be particularly happy about things, from the other side, where, let's take somebody who's fighting for basic needs, right? I have two questions there, right? But let me go to the first question actually. When you say it's becoming common because these celebrities are coming out and talking about it, it might answer part of my question. What I was going to ask was, we are having this conversation around as professionals, quote unquote white collar workers of some
Yes.
sort, right? If I go to folks who are not that privileged, we all have certain privileges, right? We are sitting in the comforts of our living rooms, we have a roof over our head, we have 3 meals a day to eat, which is a
Yeah.
blessing. Unfortunately, planet earth is not at a point where everybody can say that they have access to even those very basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The very bottom, right? A lot of people are still trying to make that happen.
Happen, right?
Is this topic, I know, you've probably heard of, is this topic at the higher end of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even though it should be at the very bottom, right? To me, this is
Bottom,
almost
yeah.
like after you have food, water and shelter, happiness has to go right next to it. But am I correct? I don't know whether I don't want to be judgmental about it. Am I right in saying that this topic itself seems like a topic of the privileged? By privilege, I mean even people like us, so to speak, that we are able to have these conversations, whereas people who don't have the very basic needs of life may not even be able to understand or have these. I mean, is that a true statement, or is that not?
Exactly. It is. I was about to come on that. So, how many people from, like, people that we say that don't have those basic privileges as well? How many people have you ever heard in any part of the world coming out and telling them that they are, facing these kind of mental issues? Nobody. They will first think about, how to get a day's food or something like that, instead of, thinking about that, oh, I'm suffering from some kind of a mental issue, or I should go and see a therapist. They will never ever realize that something is happening to them. So I agree that a lot of people are coming out of it, the stand up comedians and everything. They talk about it openly now, and a lot of people are talking it openly about these kind of things. You will see from LinkedIn to everything, there are like thousands of mental health practitioners, health coaches, and everybody is there, right? But not how many clients do they have, and how many genuine clients do they have? I want to know that. So somebody is doing it for making money, and somebody is genuinely trying to help somebody. People will
Right.
go to people who are charging money for giving you mental peace. How is it going to help you in getting any kind of mental peace when you are like, I'm not saying that, getting a degree, diploma, or professional degree in helping people is anything bad. It's very good if you really want to help people. But I don't think this particular thing is or should be ever be associated with money. Because I don't think if Mother Teresa would, I would call her that she helped people, she would charge, something from the poor to help them. Give me
Correct.
100
Let
rupees,
me.
I'll give
I'm
you
gonna. I'm gonna.
500.
No, I'm gonna rephrase. I know your point. I'm just gonna rephrase what you said a tiny bit, right? What
Mm-hmm.
we're saying here is there need to be people who are qualified to making these judgments, correct? You need to learn it
Absolutely.
more
Yeah,
formally. You need to have access to it. You need to, whatever, whether it's diploma or a certification,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
need to be qualified doing that. That is stating the obvious, right? But what you're also saying here, at least if I rephrased what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not being able to afford this should not preclude you from not being able to get it, correct? Which is
Absolutely.
true
Yeah.
not just for this, which goes with everything else, right? It's a larger problem, correct? It's
Yeah.
food, water, sanitary conditions and the whole 9 yards, right? So unfortunately, as we speak today, at least in my mind, if I go back to Maslow's hierarchy, at the time that the triangle was drawn, probably mental health was not a topic of discussion, right? I don't know when, what it dates to the diagram. But if that Maslow's hierarchy is redrawn today, which I'm sure there might well have been, this has to be at the very bottom, right? You need this alongside food,
Yes,
water, and all these other roof over your head. You need somehow ways to support this. How you act, I mean, how you have access to it, it again is a much more difficult topic, right? How do you get access to it? It shouldn't be something it's only for the privileged, in other words,
privilege.
correct? By
Yeah,
privilege, we don't mean Bollywood stars and Hollywood stars, right? By privilege, we
absolutely. Yeah,
mean people, uh, who are like us, who don't have to worry about getting the next meal, or paying rent or something like that, right? Which is which is so there's two-part problem. One is, first of all, even people who, how do you broach that subject with them?
yeah,
There's no easy answer. It seems super complicated. The other thing is, people who cannot afford to get a lot of this help, how do they, do they even know? First, you need to educate people,
educate
stating that
people.
there
Yeah,
is such a thing, right? Unless I know that there is such a thing, how would I even be able to tell if I'm going through that thing, for instance, right? In other words, if I did not know there was something called mental health and there could be a potential problem, if I don't have that level of awareness or access to that information, I wouldn't be able to do it. So the question here is, would would a celebrity coming and talking about it actually is probably a really good thing, because they, if they say, they have access to hundreds of millions of people, right?
yeah,
So I guess in a way it's actually good that people at, who are that popular are able to have these types of conversations. I mean, would you
conversation.
say that it's actually a good thing that they are able to have these conversations?
Yeah, I think so because in India, I don't know about the other parts of the country. I would specifically talk about India. So these kind of people, or nowadays Instagram influencers, or the people who are in the media and social media, they really, really have a lot of impact on life, people's life. They want to imitate everything that these guys are doing, be it having a healthy body, good clothes, or whatever you talk about them, and they really want to have that. So why not, if they are suffering from something and they have come out of it, I think everybody should be more open about it. So it's definitely important that these kind of people should spread the right messages, because it influences a lot from a teenager to a grown up. I think everybody gets impacted. So these kind of people should actually be supporting all the good causes. I'm sure they must be doing it, as a you know something or the other for something,
So
but I am not sure.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question there.
Yeah.
So they have a social responsibility, right?
Yes,
You're saying they have a
definitely.
social responsibility, but play the devil's advocate. One of the YouTubers I watch, he's a good YouTuber. He travels around the
Hmm.
world. He travels to India and different parts of the world, and he makes fun content, right? And I won't go into the details of what he said, but there was a scenario where he hit something, and then people had a lot of comments saying, "Oh, you know what? You should not have done this because you have social responsibility, right?" And he, in particular, he's very open in what he says. You know what I mean? He just is one of those people. So he did a video on this. He said, "You know what? Uh, I, just like you folks, make a living. As professionals, as cook, chef, travelers, writers, whatever. You have a profession. You make money and you go about it, right? I chose this to make a living. I want to make videos and post it on YouTube. I'm monetizing. I'm happy. I do not sign up for social responsibility. Just because I have 4 million followers, am I supposed to do the right things? I will do whatever I want to do. If you want to watch my channel, you watch the channel. If you don't want to watch the channel, there's like 49 million other channels to watch, so go watch it, right? This is lit. I'm paraphrasing what he said. It
Yeah.
came, I was a little bit shocked by the content of what I was hearing. But then, every time you're shocked, you let it slide, you just wait for it, you sleep on it and come back the next morning, you're like, maybe they have a point, right? This is a little bit peripheral. What would you say to a YouTuber such as that, who's got a reach, who says, I will say the wrong things if I have to because it's my prerogative, it's my freedom of expression? How does it bother you, right? But like you mentioned, truly so, Vidhi, it has an impact. What
Yeah.
would you tell those YouTubers?
So for the YouTubers and the social media influencers, which is on Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, that's a different thing because we have the right to choose here. If I want to see, I will see. If I don't want to see, I won't see. Same goes with the movies in the theaters. I want to see, I will go and watch a Shah Rukh Khan movie. If I really don't like Shah Rukh, I won't go it. But if you are sending any kind of a message, for example, if you are doing an advertisement or something like for what do you call a pan masala in the US? I really don't know. You must be calling it a mouth freshener or something, but
Right.
it's not
Okay.
good for health, right? But if you're promoting something like that, you are advertising that, people would see you and they'll buy it and they'll eat it.
Right.
They don't think that, whether actually that person or that actor actress is actually using it or not. It has that kind of influence that maybe they are eating, but I don't know. Why
Right.
would
So
they
there
come
is
into the limelight eating everything like that? But if you're promoting something, if you are advertising for something, that becomes your responsibility. Thousand millions of people are watching the ads. They are seeing the posters which are pasted everywhere throughout. So that becomes your moral responsibility. I'm not saying that we don't have the right to choose. Definitely we have whatever we want to watch. If I want to talk to somebody like that, we have a choice to see what we want to, what we don't want to. But if you are propagating something which is on a mass level, then you should think
correct.
about it. That what you are
Make
promoting,
makes sense, right?
that is important. It's not something where we have the choice. We definitely have the choice. For that matter, I completely can resonate with that YouTuber. If you want to read what I am writing on LinkedIn, your choice. If you don't want to read it, please unsubscribe me. You really don't have to
Right.
read it. So those kind of choices we have when YouTube is there, or there is a content we can control. But what about the content where we don't have any kind of control? I am watching a movie and I am getting an ad 10 times in between. At some point of time, I'll feel, yeah, if these guys are doing it, why can't I do it? I should give it a try.
So absolutely right. So in other words, leading by example is a point here, right? So
Exactly.
there's several layers of challenges like an onion when you peel it, right? One
Absolutely.
is the awareness of mental health is point number one, right? If you're aware of this, you know what it is. That means you like it or not, you are at a certain point of place of privilege, right? Otherwise, like you
Exactly.
mentioned,
Yeah.
people may not even have this awareness, and even when you do have the awareness, you're the second challenge you mentioned was you may not be able to tell yourself because you're just living with yourself, but at the other party, like you are able to spot differences in a friend or a family member
Yes.
because you're used to a certain kind of interaction, and when there are differences in that interaction, you want to try and broach that subject to the extent that you're able to do, for instance, right? That's a second
Absolutely. Yeah.
level. The third level of challenge is also with these in a very global world that we work with people all over, right? It's different parts of the world. Cultures, like we mentioned, are different.
Yeah.
The social, what's accepted, what is right, what is wrong, uh even body language, right? Gestures, everything is dramatically different, right?
Dramatically different. Yeah.
Now when you're working in a remote capacity and you're on video calls, you're having one or two interactions a day. This makes it even harder. I'm going to ask, now that I've asked you these easy, it's always easy to ask these questions. So I'm just sorry, I'm throwing them at you, just thinking
No,
aloud
no,
here,
it's fine.
right?
It's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
As a company, now we're going to the company, right? Because we want to bring the
Yeah.
employer into the picture. It's one thing to say, sure, companies have to be aware of it, and they are. More and more companies are taking the initiatives, right, to making these changes. Before I go to the very difficult specific questions, the highest level, if I asked you, I'm going to ask you a very obvious question, just to start with the most simple one. Should a company today, in the list of perks that it's offering, time off, activities and health insurance and whatnot,
Yeah.
support for mental health, do you see that as an optional thing, or do you think it is required, you got to have it in that list?
See, as a perk, the company can definitely offer it, and they should. But again, coming back to the same point, it cannot be mandatory for anybody. You might be giving me, like our company offers mental health sessions, but hardly 10 people join it out of 250. So again, it's not that the company, see, it's a moral responsibility of every company to
I mean,
provide
does it
these
mean
kind
it's
of
a
things.
good thing? Does it mean everybody is very happy that they don't need the sessions, or they're just not going to those sessions even if they could use those sessions?
They should definitely use it, even if they don't want to talk about it. I agree that a lot of people are still not willing to talk about anything. They think that office is not a place where you should be discussing your personal issues or your mental issues. What will people think that, oh my god, that he's suffering from such mental, it doesn't seem like. So a lot of people don't do it at workplaces because they're afraid. Again, coming back to that Indian song, ki log kya kahenge, what the people will say. It's always, you know there in the head that what will people say at work. So I think that is one reason. But still, if the company is offering any kind of sessions, I think they should still attend it. Maybe somebody is asking that kind of a question, which is your problem area as well. Like if
Okay,
20 people
hang
are
on. I'm going to
actually,
stop you there. That's a good
yeah,
point. But before that, I have a question.
hmm.
Do I go to these sessions only when I'm not super happy, or I want to believe that even if I'm happy, I would still benefit from these sessions. Correct? It's not like I only go to these sessions
Yeah,
when
definitely
I'm
not.
unhappy or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not, and trust me, these kind of sessions are not to tell you that if you are suffering from depression, anxiety, that you can come to us and you can ask us questions and we'll give you therapy or something like that. They give you different ways of making your life even happier, like spending time with the family or doing or working on a hobby or things you are trying for very long but you did not get a time, take time off for yourself or sometimes. So they give you those kind of generic tips as well, which you might need at some point of time and which is always beneficial to hear. There is no harm in joining the sessions, gaining knowledge, understanding what is happening. So there is no harm in doing it, even if you are super happy in your life. I attend all the sessions. I'm not saying I'm super happy. Everybody has their share of, ups and downs in life. But yes, I try and attend because I really want to know what these kind of people tell you who actually have these kind of degrees.
So, which means, Vidhi,
They,
why are people not, in your mind, why are people not going to the sessions? Is it simply because I don't have the time or the interest, or is it perception about what might somebody think if I attended these sessions? Like, what do you think? Why is nobody, even though
I
it's
think
paid
it's
for?
it's more like I think at work like which I see here or like in the previous companies. I think people are not joining it because they think that they can utilize this time for work and they can take a time early off or maybe they can do something else after the working hours or maybe people are actually not willing to hear. They think that what kind of a help are these kind of people going to give us? Listening to one podcast or listening to one session if somebody is giving at work, they think that what kind of help are they going to generate for us? I think that is also one mindset. That in
Right.
one session, listening to, like if somebody is listening to my podcast and in this one for that matter, they might be thinking, what benefit am I actually getting out of spending my 1 hour or 2 hours hearing this podcast? But you just never know. Maybe we are addressing a lot of important things which actually is going on in your head, but you have never ever spoken about it with
Oh no,
anyone.
beautifully, right?
Yeah.
I cannot say that any better than you did, because outside of even this topic, right, Vidhi, there are things like, even I mean, I take engineering examples because unfortunately that's my knowledge is limited there. But let's say
Mm-hmm.
you take something, there's a technology, right? You're like,
Yeah.
hey, I probably won't use. Let me take something completely arbitrary. Like
Mm-hmm.
Redux is one of the frameworks that you use to do state management in a user interface. Now, you're a lawyer. I don't expect you to understand. This is like a random engineering statement, right? But I say this
Mm-hmm.
because folks are watching, might it might resonate with them. But when you take that, I was like, okay, at that point I didn't have a need for that. For what we were doing in the company, we were like, sure, but there's another one called relay, and we were like, that's fine, we could use a different state management framework, right? But you still read up on Redux because you're like, you know what, it does some things differently, I might have to come back and revisit this. 6 months go by, 12 months go by, and then you run into a different issue, a state management related issue. And like, you know what? Did I not read about Redux last year? Maybe I
Yeah.
should go look it up and see what happened. Now, unfortunately, in the world of JavaScript, that may not even exist, but thankfully, in the
Mm-hmm.
case of Redux, it's still popular, so it does exist. But I'm just taking a random example to state that things don't have to immediately matter to you, right?
Exactly.
You learn those things, and then it might be at a different point of time where it makes a little bit more of a difference, right? So ignorance is not bliss, right? As long as you
Exactly.
find value in what you're doing, it might make sense. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to share that thought.
No, no, it's absolutely fine. I think you asked me at the right time. So this was actually in my mind that when these kind of sessions, I'll tell you personally my example. I think 2 3 days back we were we received an email for the health seminar at our workplace. I did not attend it. I think neither of us did. Like we have a team of 50 people and I think 150 odd people sit in that particular place. None of them went to that health webinar. No one attended it. There was this woman who came to the office. She was giving that, health speech and whatever she was. I don't know what she said and all that because I did not go and I did not attend the webinar as well. So I am telling you from my personal experience that why people are not attending it. I had a lot of things before joining a new company. I was super busy with it. I have to hand over a few things here, and then I have to make sure that everything is fine there. So I was very busy with it, and I actually wanted to. I actually wanted to hear what she wanted to say, but none of us, came on the video, and nobody was there. So the HR then dropped an email to us that we are actually doing all this for sake of mental health being for everybody at work, but we have observed that people are not attending. So they have actually asked us a reason that, is there any specific reason that you guys really don't want to attend this so that we can just stop it? Why would we, call people and spend so much money if you guys are not interested? If people are so happy and they really don't have any kind of issues, it's very good. But if you have, you can, utilize this time.
And then
But
there is a
but I
repercussion, right, Vidhi? Basically, I read somewhere, just just to be a little bit more prepared. I read and
hmm
I noticed that uh, employee retention, for instance, right? And you mentioned at the top of the call where people are there, they are in a place, they're happy, they don't look to move, right? Because
yeah,
you're not always chasing that extra $10 or 100 or 1,000, whatever those dollars happen
right.
to be, right? You have like what, I actually enjoy the people I work with. I think it was someone's quote, and I don't remember who it was. Like maybe it was Warren Buffett, but I don't want to misquote anybody. Sometimes internet attributes the quotes to the wrong people, even though the quote itself is awesome. It just you don't know who said that, right? But I read somewhere, somebody saying that if you, if I'm just paraphrasing it, so I'm not going to do justice to it. But if you're happy at work, uh, you know, I know great, titles, growth, all of this matters, sure, right? But ultimately, you need to enjoy what you're doing, correct? You need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to enjoy what you're doing with whoever you're doing that with. Like you're working with people, building software, fighting cases and laws, whatever the profession might be, right? You need to be able to have that, and different people have different needs. I can tell you, like my wife, for instance, it's very important for her to work with a similar group of people, right? She's very she loves the group of people she works with, and the changes, it takes a little bit more time if there's any sort of a
Yeah,
change, right?
I
Now
understand that. Yeah.
I've been doing consulting for different purposes.
Mm.
I don't enjoy that luxury. I don't. It's a beautiful luxury that I would love to enjoy. I've had to make certain decisions and compromises and sacrifices for other things like running a company. So as a consultant, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this can resonate because a lot of folks are in the business of consulting. Every 6 months or every 3 months, whatever the time frame is, you have a completely new team. You have a
Team,
new set
yeah.
of people, right?
Yes.
And now you wonder, it works for some people, it does not work for other
Not
people,
good.
and it's very understandable, right? Every 6 months you have a learning curve, and even getting to that point, right? Someone, when you talk to somebody, they call me the other day and they said, Krish, there is a client is looking for some help. But to get to the point where you talk to the client and help them with it was like a several stage process.
Yeah.
It was like like crossing the seas and scaling mountains before I can actually talk to the client. I was like, wow, this is like,
Yeah.
does this thing have to be so difficult, right? And and then you realize, oh my god, there is more of us doing the same sorts of things. We have to find ways to differentiate ourselves, and then you get stressed out about a number of different things, for instance, right? So I think uh, when there is a session, what you're suggesting is you should give it a shot.
Short,
And
yeah.
maybe you don't need it today because you're in a slightly different demographic.
Yeah.
But the beauty of life, as I've seen, is we all go through the same. I mean, we go through the same phases at
Absolutely.
different points of time. That's the only
Different points,
difference.
definitely. Yes,
But we still go through those same phases of life, right? When
exactly.
you're at a certain point in life, you're like, you know what? I don't think that will ever matter to me, and there comes a day where that does matter to you, right? So I think there is an element of not being selfish here, right, to the extent possible, right? You're like, you know what, if I can help people in any small way I can, however small that can be, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you can mix, I've tried to do this here and there. You cannot, like I always say in a lot of the podcasts, that not all of us can be like Mahatma Gandhi or MLK or or a lot of these greats, for instance, right? We can aspire to be, but maybe we can't, it doesn't work out that way, right? But if you can change one person's life, just one person, like one
Yeah,
person's life, right? Like you said, you talk to a friend, you if you helped one friend, then you helped her or him, and
yeah.
or them, sorry, and then they would have a partner, a spouse, a family, right? And the rest of them are all benefiting from that person being helped, right? So even though your direct impact was helping one individual, your indirect impact could have been helping a whole lot of other people,
Exactly.
right? And then you
This is all
extrapolate
about,
that.
mental health, right? It's not about that you are having a setup of mental health practitioner or something like that. If you have impacted like five, six people around you and they are happy in their life and you have supported them and next 10 are happy because of that particular one individual, I think it adds to the community happiness. And yes, of course, as you said that, if you are happy at your work, why is somebody happy and not happy at a workplace? What do you think, Krish? I am asking
Good.
you a question. What do
Okay,
you
good
think?
question. No, good question, right? Um, there could be many reasons, but I'm going to give you a
Mm.
generic set of reasons as a software engineer myself, right? When you start a certain position, you're working with a company, you expect certain things, correct? You're like, you know what? I want to be able to build software. The company tells me, Krish, you can work on this particular stack. Here is the type of project. Here are the people you're working with. Here is who you're going to report to. You get all of those details, correct? Now you get started with your work. There's a lot of different kinds of challenges that can present themselves, right? One is, well, the technology stack that we were given or we were promised initially, it doesn't turn out that you're actually working on that, for instance, right? You're working on a slightly different technology stack. Sorry, I'm taking very engineer software
No, no, it's
examples,
fine.
but
It's fine. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think you
right.
should make it more like technology based because we have like a lot of people who will be watching from that industry. So
Yeah,
we
so
will
this part,
connect everything
I'm
there definitely.
perfect, right? So let's say I am picking the stack and I'm told, Krish, I fell in love with a language called Golang last year. So a lot of the work I've been doing currently this year is Golang, for instance. I mean, we have a lot of other things in our stack like Ruby and TypeScript and Node and AWS and whatnot, right? But the last 4 months I've been working on, say 3 months on Golang. Now, if I hired somebody to help us and I said, hey, you're going to work on Golang, and then I told them, you know what, it's going to take a little bit. Why don't you go work on Ruby, for instance, right? Now, Ruby is a beautiful language as well, but it's a different language.
Yeah.
Different people could react to it differently. Now, for somebody who's not in the space of software engineering, it could come across as, what's the difference? It's the same company, same people, same pay, same perks. Don't be too picky, right? But that's not true. It's not being too picky. I've promised somebody that you're going to be working on a certain stack and they are not working on that stack, right? So I don't think it's right to accuse them of being picky. I may have failed to do this as an employer. That could be one extremely specific reason somebody's unhappy in an engineering software company, right? I don't want to. I wanted to start with a very subtle item, right? I want to say this for folks who may not be watching content like Indian content. It's in a funny way. So I come from the southern part of India. I watch Tamil movies, right? And when you have to have, our movies are quite emotional, right? Very emotional. It's way too emotional for a lot of the people in the world. We are used to the levels of emotion. It's way too emotional, right? I have a friend in Houston, Tanya, and we went to one of the movies and she was extremely emotional, and I was not even emotional watching that particular movie. I was like, Tanya, you got to be kidding me, right? If you cried for an hour and a half watching this one, please don't ever watch movies that are made in the part of the world I'm coming from. You're going to be like, it's going to be like a river of sobbing or
Yeah.
something, right? So the point I'm trying to make for people who may have not watched Indian content is, it's a lot more exaggerated in that sense, right? We always make it very dramatic so you get the message across. My first example was not that dramatic. It was a very subtle example of Golang versus Ruby, right? Now let me take a very dramatic example. Imagine you start work. You know what, whether you're going to get paid X amount of dollars, you're happy, you're stoked, you get started. 2 weeks go by, the company tells you, oh, you know what, the market's not great. We're going to slash your pay by like 15%, right? This is not subtle. This is as less subtle as it can be, right? Because it makes a direct impact financially, right? You're not going to be a happy camper, and you're rightfully justified in not being a happy camper, right? These are two extremes, but there are many, many things in between. I don't get along with the person I'm reporting to, or the person or the team I'm working with is not happy with what I'm doing, or a lot of these types of possibilities, right? And I'm just trying to answer your question in a long winded manner. Two extremes, a simple language difference could make somebody unhappy, slashing 15% of their pay can make them unhappy. Now, even though these look as dramatic and they're dramatically different, people could react to it differently. Someone could say 15% lesser. You know what? I'm in my early stages in my career. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm working on a beautiful stack, like I'm working on generative AI, you don't even have to pay me anything, right? Because I'm going to get paid a lot of money, right? So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer as to why
So,
you
so
should be
if I,
unhappy, but it's a
sorry,
breadth of things.
yeah, so if I ask you that, just sum it up into just three top pointers which make you happy at work, what will be top
Make
three?
me happy, right? Make me happy.
Yeah,
Okay. The people I work with, I have to enjoy having the interactions with those people.
that's
Everything
the
else
only
being
answer I
perfect.
wanted. Yeah.
Okay.
So it all comes to connections, right? At the end
Right.
of the day. No matter how much a company pays you, like my present organization was paying me well enough. I was planning to change, but not because of the money. Only because of a simple reason that I was not able to connect. And the bunch of people I was working with, I was not feeling worthy of working with them. That was the only reason. I think for me, money does matter. Of course, I have to run a family. I have, everything which is there, which requires a lot of money, of course. But at the end of the day, when I don't find people with whom I want to work, I can't stand that particular job role, right? So it's very important for me. I don't know, maybe I am like a bit that way, is that I want good people to
No,
work
you're
with.
not.
I
No,
don't
no,
know
Vidhi,
with,
your point is perfectly valid, right? Your point is perfectly valid. I just want to add one thing to say. If somebody's watching this thinking, oh, Vidhi is sitting in a place of privilege that she can actually make a career or decision based on these things and they're not that important, let me tell that person, right? If somebody is actually thinking
yeah,
about that, that's not true because when you don't have something, when I'm sitting here and I love DiCaprio, right? I watch all of his movies like n number of times. I'm going to be like, if he says something, you're so popular, you're wealthy, you got all the power and everything. And if such a person said that they're not happy about something, hypothetically, I cannot vilify them, right? Saying, oh my God, you got everything. Why should you be? Because you worked really hard to get there. And when you get to a certain point, you have certain expectations. So it's completely all right. I want to make sure, it's very easy to be judgmental, like you mentioned
yeah,
earlier, but you don't
hmm,
want to be judgmental because you worked really really hard to get to where you are today, and it's rightfully justified that by you I just mean anybody who gets to a certain position, right? You have certain expectations, and if you're not happy, like you mentioned, it's not the
yeah.
money, it's something else, and you want to make look for alternatives, right? Sorry, go on.
And trust me, it's not that whosoever, like a lot of people must be listening, and they have a lot of questions in mind that, what do you think? You are going to a company, whichever company you are going next, you won't get that kind of people which you won't like. Yes, for sure, I'll have a lot of people who I maybe they won't like me or I won't like them. But I at least want a workspace or place where at least I feel worthy, I feel heard, I feel that, yes, this is somebody or someone I can work with. They understand you, right? So if you don't get, even in your personal life or professional life, if you don't get that kind of people, you can't stay for long. For example, if you get married, right? And after like 2-3 years you realize that this is not the person you will ever get along. Will you keep staying within that relationship just for the sake that you have to stay in that relationship? You won't. At some point of time in life, you'll leave it,
I'm
whether
not answering
early
that.
or late.
I'm not answering that question intentionally.
No, no,
Because
I'm just saying
it's a
that
very
if
difficult
you can
question.
take tough decisions, personally, which are even harder than taking it professionally. So I think this aspect is very important in both sides of life, and
Oh,
it
beautiful, right,
directly
Vidhi? That
relates to your
perfect.
mental well-being. I
No,
think
I
the
think your
set of
point is
people
very
you live
valid,
with, yeah,
personal and professional, right? Because this is very important. I want to touch upon that, right? It sometimes it's easy to think that personal life is the most important. I mean, nobody questions it's important, right? Your family, your friends,
yeah,
your support network. But professional life is no less important because
no less
we
important, yeah,
we identify ourselves by our you know what I mean. When you ask me what I like, I mean, I'm not I mean, the first thing that comes to me is what I'm working on right now at Snowpal, for
exactly,
instance, right? That's your professional life. When I asked you, you told me about things that you do at work professionally, right? So that's what inspires you, that motivates you, and you feel proud about what you do. So
exactly.
I don't
And
think
frankly,
professional
Krish,
life is
tell
any
me,
less
like,
important.
we are both professionals. Tell me, apart from 2, 3 hours in a day, how much time do we get to sit with the family? Like we spend major of most of our time with at work with people at work. You're constantly in touch with somebody or the other on Teams or any other platform. You have a lot of connect with a lot of people. So if you're spending like 9 good hours of your day out of 24 hours, it includes your 8, 9 hours of sleep. So you're spending a good amount, and they become like a family. So if a family is not supportive, not you're not make they're not making you comfortable or something like that, you won't be able to survive for very long. You will have to go from that place.
No, no,
And
absolutely right.
go back from your childhood days. The best of friends you have are from school. Why? Because you spend most of your time at school, 9 hours at school, and then you're coming home, and then you're going back to tuitions, and then again discussing everything with your school friends. So all the major things which are happening in a human's life are all related, connected to people around you.
Yeah,
And
plus, there's one more reason, because they became your friends because before they knew you very well, which is
exactly,
why they're your friend. No, I'm just
they
kidding.
are your
I'm
friends.
just trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is also one aspect, but I am coming to a point that it all comes to, I'm taking this point over and over again because it all comes to your mental peace when you are with good people whom you can talk to about anything and everything. So, be it at work, be it a software professional or a legal professional, I want my kind of people to be around with whom I can, always talk and discuss things. Even if at work I don't have somebody I can discuss my personal or personal, so I avoid personal conversations at work. I also avoid it. But in terms of professions, if you're suffering from some issues at work, or you're not getting things understandable the way you want it, you want somebody, right, who can understand you and make you understand a particular kind of a thing, be it a code or be it a clause from my end, anything. If you don't have that kind of support system behind you, it becomes impossible for you to work,
No,
and it
good
affects
point,
your
right?
mental well-being to a great extent that you can't be at peace at home. If I know that nobody's supportive of me at work, I will be like going insane at home as well. No matter how much my people support me at home, and they are there and they say we are here, and it's a matter of 2, 3 days.
In
You
other
get
words,
some
right,
good
Vidhi,
opportunity. Yeah,
you cannot compartmentalize. In other words, right, what
exactly.
happens there comes here. What happens here goes
And
there.
Chris,
Essentially,
trust
right?
me, it's very easy for people to say that, keep your professional and personal life separate. Yeah, we do. And we understand. That's why we have work life balance. And then Saturday, Sunday, people avoid, doing office conversation. But tell me honestly, how many people don't converse about work or people at work on weekdays after working
It's
or
funny you
Saturdays
should
and
ask me
Sundays?
this question, because my wife knows every You know what I mean? I talk about, hey, I said this, you have
Exactly.
this. And sometimes she's like, Krish, this is too much information. Can I not get all of this information, right? But some of us are chatty by nature, right? Like she wouldn't
Yeah.
say a thing. I would have no idea what's happening. And
Uh-huh.
maybe because I'm not asking for that too, it's my fault. But I know what you mean. You take the happiness from one place to the other, or you take the sorrows from
Exactly.
one place to the
And
other,
and
right?
recently, when you must have heard that there is a discussion going on here in India about 70 hours of working, and there is a debate among every other leader all over the world that it should be there or it should not be. But so I think I read one quote. So instead of work-life balance, I think I really like the concept of work and life harmony is
Oh,
was
it's
the
funny
term,
you should
if
say
I
that. Please
remember.
go, because I was going to actually interrupt you to say that, but you beat me to it. Please go ahead. Let's talk about work
No,
life harmony.
I think it's a beautiful concept, and who I don't remember the exact name who said this, but he's a. I mean, I'm sure he is a leader of some big brand or big company. I don't know, but he has beautifully said it that it is very important that you stay happy at work, because you take that happiness, that confidence, that kind of that how should I say those into words? So I mean, what I meant was, in the crux is that if you are happy at work, you will take that happiness to home, and if you are happy at home, you will take that to work. So it's going in
No, no,
circles.
beautiful. Let
It's
me add to that, right? Let me add to what you're just saying, right? In other
yeah,
words, see, work life balance, I think in my mind, I don't know what the definition is. What in my mind, what it meant was you have a time balance of some
balance.
sort,
Yeah,
right? You basically say, I start work at this time, I end work, and then I go back home, I have this conversation, and you forget about work, right? But
work.
that's
Yeah,
not pragmatic. If you
Yeah,
actually love what you do at work, you're not going to forget it just because you
forget
close,
it.
shut your computer down at 6 o'clock, for instance, right? It does not happen.
Absolutely.
So the reality is, work-life harmony makes a lot of sense because you do not want to you don't need to make a separation between those two things. If you like each of them as much as you can possibly like, and if you
Exactly.
don't like them as much as you like, you have to find a way to make those changes, right? Again, it again might sound like we are sitting in a little bit of a place of privilege because we're able to make some decisions, right? But I think what else can we do? We can only, I mean, each of us can only speak to our experiences based on where we are at. So I'm not
I
saying
think
this is applicable.
this particular point of work life harmony, I think it is applicable starting from people who work at the ground level.
Since I know the question I was going to ask is, the
Mhm.
companies acknowledge this, so they are providing that. Like you mentioned, they have webinars and they're
Yeah.
providing that help, which is a good, great first step, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
happening. Now the question is, the other challenge is folks are working from different parts of the world, right, Vidhi? So what, like, let me give you an arbitrary example. A lot of
Mhm.
the startups, I don't know if it happens now, they used to throw a ping pong table tennis table, and it was considered a perk, right? Now I
Yeah.
love table tennis. I used to play it all the time, not as much anymore, hopefully I do, but I love the game. But that's not what I was expecting at the workplace, and that's not, I'm like, I can play with a group of people I know outside of work. I don't need the workplace to provide that to me, right? So I always
Yeah.
felt like the perks have to be very, you can't determine what somebody needs or a group of people need, right? It cannot, I feel like it's a little bit judgmental because it's optimal for companies for doing that. Like, there was a time I went to a building, and they had a beautiful building, like a fantastic building, like marble flooring, and it looked like the Ritz-Carlton, right?
Mhm.
But that's not what I was expecting out of a workplace. Personally speaking, I'm like, you know what? If this flooring did not look this attractive, I would still be all right, right? If the
Mhm.
chair was not a Herman Miller chair, it's like $1,500 chair. As long as it doesn't hurt my back, I might be still be okay, right? How do you think companies? I mean, do you first of all agree that you cannot tell what Vidhi likes versus what Krish likes because each of us could like something completely different from each other?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think so. I think whatever is possible for the companies, they do it. Like be it the table tennis or ping pong tables, or you have what do you call it, ice hockey tables and foosballs you have at work. So I think that is very, yeah. Then you put it so well in that way that I have never played any of the games at work. Never
You're
ever.
like, no, I'm not playing football. No, no, that's
Yeah,
not a perk for
I,
me.
I haven't learned it even. Like I know table tennis and I sometimes play ice hockey once or twice maybe. That too also with my family, not at work. So I'm not a big fan of playing all these games. But yeah, some of the people at work I have seen they play regularly. Then they have tournaments and within the office and they do that. So sometimes like a lot of people enjoy it. So companies can only provide which is generic, but they can't come to everybody. Like if you have a 2000 employee company, you just can't go to everybody and ask that what do you like and then make a
So
list of
how
it and
should they
then
do it though?
you
I'm going
know
to ask you the difficult question. How do you
yeah, I
think they
think
should do
they
this?
should one way of doing it is if they really want to make it easy is they can just send out a survey. Like it's easier than making a list of 2000
Right,
people and asking
right.
individually, but yes, they can do it in a way of a survey that what people really like, and then few generic and few specific things we can add at workplace so that people should feel happy. Like for example, chairs. I think everybody needs a comfortable chair. I would not need a branded chair, but I would definitely need a comfortable chair because I have to sit 9 hours at work. So I really don't want my back, which is a major issue again with a lot of people, like the backache, cervical,
Oh, it's a
migraine.
brilliant point. Like you
Yeah,
said, right? List of things that makes people unhappy. This is like a
exactly.
simple thing
This
to
is
fix,
this
right?
is
It's a
very
simple thing to
important. I mean,
fix.
chairs are like a crucial part of your work life. So, like somebody might be just very happy. Somebody like me, or people who have lot of desk job, reading and validating things and stuff like that, Excel and everything. They might just need a comfortable chair instead of foosball or ice hockey. They just need good, cafeteria where they can have a good tea or coffee throughout the day, maybe one or twice. So these, I think, few things need to be generic and basic, which I think most of the companies are providing. Few things definitely can be specific, asking them in the surveys what specific things people are actually looking for at work. But basic things should be there: comfortable chairs, air conditioning, and a temperature control and everything. I think this is all basic which we can expect from any kind of company. Like, I am a big tea fan, so I want a good tea or coffee maybe at work. So I
And
think
why not?
for
India has such brilliant tea, right?
yeah,
Beautiful, one of the
definitely.
best
I
teas
miss
in the
that at
world.
work because those are all, machine made. So I never have tea at work because it is all machine made tea, and this is not at all like an Indian tea. But yes, people like a few of my companies back in 13, 15 when I worked, they had a proper pantry where you can ask, pantry people to make that kind of tea for
I
you.
want to
So I
add
think,
something here for people who are watching. Usually I give tech recommendations, but this,
mhm,
since Vidhi mentioned tea, and tea is very close to my heart. My wife and I, we are big fans of tea. So if people are buying tea, India has brilliant teas, and I'm sure a lot of people know of Darjeeling tea because that's very
yes,
popular. But I would say, there's a state called Assam in India, and the teas coming from Assam are absolutely brilliant. So
yes.
personally, if you ask me, even more so than Darjeeling, I would even recommend, like, I go look out for it. It's very hard to find them where it says like coming literally from that particular state. So anybody who's watching this, you love tea, you should definitely check out both Darjeeling and Assam tea, for instance.
And I am thinking about my second last employer that if these guys will see this video, they will be like, oh my God, tea is so important to Vidhi that she has even spoke about tea here in the podcast. And I'll be like, they'll be like super surprised that she can talk about tea anywhere, anytime. Because I mentioned this is, about something about tea in one of our meetings, very important board meetings kind of. So and they did not provide any kind of tea or coffee, anything at work. And I was like so surprised. I was like, you have such good office and you don't have tea. And they thought that it was a big thing to talk about at a meeting. But when you gave me this liberty that I can talk about anything, like if you think that we are the core members and we talk about everything, I think I should give at least my opinion that you are missing on such an important part of an Indian
No,
life.
no, absolutely. I mean, you could take an
Yeah.
example of a kid, right? I mean, we all have a
Yeah.
child in ourselves. If you take an example of a kid, a child who's like 4 years old doesn't care for the value of the object you're giving that
Exactly.
kid, right?
Yeah.
It could be $2 and they would love it. You might buy something for $1,000 and they'll be like, oh my God, what is this?
Absolutely.
I don't care for it, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Uh,
happiness is not measured by the amount of dollars. I mean, I don't know. They say, right, money doesn't buy happiness. To the joke is,
Happiness.
if I have to cry, might as well sit in a Ferrari and cry than in like a Civic and cry. But I think it's just a joke. It doesn't translate to real life,
Yeah.
for instance, right? So you know, these are huge
We
topics.
are talking about the fact that celebrities are coming up with mental health issues and everything. If money can buy happiness, they would never suffer from depression or unhappiness for sure.
And we know, even if it's not at that level, right, Vidhi? Like, let's
Yeah,
say
yeah.
whatever you have today, maybe you didn't have one or two of these things 5 years ago, right? You would have thought,
Yeah,
hey,
I'll
I
tell you.
get
I'll
this.
tell you my example. So, like day before yesterday, I was thinking that I am not a big fan of iPhone, frankly, but I thought of buying it, and then I realized that everybody
And you have a
has their
store
own
in
time.
Delhi right now. You don't have to go
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah,
There's a store right there
yeah.
in Delhi. Yeah.
Exactly. So, small things give you happiness. Money cannot give you. I'm not a big iPhone fan. So that is what I was coming to, that, I was thinking and that everybody will have their share at some point of time in life. Some people get it early in life, some people get late, but definitely they will have their share of happiness. And they should wait for it. It should not be like, isko mil gaya aur mujhe nahi mila. I am like 40 and I don't have anything, and she's just 20, she's earning so well. You will have your time for sure. And
No,
so
that's
so
very good,
keep.
right? And I'll give you one example, right? I read an article written by this person. I want to say he was Bengali, so from West Bengal in India, right? Beautiful state. He, I believe, lived in the U.S. and he was relocating, and he had written. He wrote beautifully, right? I wish I can find those articles. And somebody who likes to write, I was very inspired by how he wrote. He had said that, hey, there are times I see people relocating back, going back after they lived in a different country. They decide, you know what, I want to go back home. I'm going to find happiness there, right? He had said this so beautifully. He said, if you're happy where you are, there's a good chance you're going to be happy where you go. But
Exactly.
if you're relocating because you're not happy where you are and you're relocating with the hope that you're going to find happiness in that new location, even if that happens to be the place of birth and you're going back there. He's like, you're going to be sorely disappointed because happiness does not come from relocating yourself from one city to another city, right? It is not as
Exactly.
simple as that. If that were to be the case, we would all just buy it. Like we would just relocate ourselves to our heart's content and be
Absolutely.
happy, right?
And this is one thing I tell my mom also, because she has been working throughout her life and now she has moved to US from like 3 4 years. So she's like, I still don't feel that kind of contentment. I was like, you were not even feeling here in India and you're not feeling in the US. What did you think, that you will change the place and you will go to a different location and you'll start feeling the contentment in yourself? So it has to come from within. It is not
Mhm.
something that something from the outside world is going to give you. So happiness, mental well-being, everything is here. I don't think anybody can give you that.
But let me ask you another difficult, now that I haven't asked you difficult questions. Let's say I'm happy. Let's say I'm more or less happy. Things
Mhm.
don't have to be super perfect, but more or less, let's say we're all reasonably happy, right? And then you're subjected to something, right? I'm going to take a preposterous example, right? You're happy, you're not traveling much, but you're still happy where you're at, right? Like I don't like to travel much, I don't go anywhere. You go to go to social media. You have a friend has a photo from Interlaken in Switzerland, right? They are there for like 3 weeks. And then you see another friend. I don't know. They're say in Darjeeling, beautiful part of India. They're traveling there. Then there's somebody else doing something. They bought a beautiful house. Somebody bought a nice Tesla, right? This seems to affect people's happiness in general, right? I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying somebody, right? But is it fair to say, first of all, before I state the obvious, would you agree that things that do not matter to us, things that do not affect us, things that we have nothing to do with. I mean, a friend of mine traveling to Interlaken in Switzerland, a beautiful part of the world, no question about that. Am I correct or am I being wrong in saying that this does affect people's happiness? I mean, seeing other people happy I mean, I don't want to say it because it sounds rude, but seeing other people happy, does it make people unhappy?
I was just about to say that I don't know about other people being happy, making other people happy, but they'll definitely make them unhappy.
So,
I
right?
don't know
So,
why is that, but this is so true. Like for my friends, for example, I don't feel unhappy, frankly. But in life in general, the people I didn't like much or something like that, if I see them, doing something which I want to do ever in my life and I have not done it, I'm like, I feel bad about it. I'm like, oh my God, they have done it. I feel happy and but I feel unhappy as well. Maybe because I was not able to do it. Probably I could have done it before them. I would have feel happy that, okay, they also did it. I did it already. But once they have done it before me, I'm like, I feel sad that, okay, they have done it finally and I'm still unhappy. I don't know. I
okay,
think it's very human to not feel so
human, right?
happy
So,
if
but
other
we
people.
have to. I
Yeah.
want to talk about that, right? Because I'll give you something. My father,
Uh-huh.
I think he said this some time ago. He said, "You should really be happy." In different words though. He's not as articulate. I mean, I'm not saying I'm very
Hmm.
articulate, but not even as articulate as I am. He doesn't talk much. He said, you should actually pray that people around you are really, really happy and they have a lot of money and everything. And I'm like, wow, my dad must be like Mahatma Gandhi or something. He really means like, well, father. And the answer that he said afterwards cracked me up, right? I said, okay, I was like, Appa, this is amazing. This is like really from the heart. You really wish for other people's happiness. He said, well, there is a reason, right? You know what the reason is? If the other person or all the people around you are extremely happy and wealthy, you know what, Vidhi? There's less of a chance they'll come and bother you. They're not going to ask you for money. They're not going to ask you for anything. I was like, you know what? He's like, okay, no, I don't know whether I had to feel proud of that statement or not, but I said it was good
Yeah.
intention. Even though the follow up statement actually cracked me up, he said, you know what? Let's make sure everybody around us is really, really wealthy, much wealthier than us and happier. So they'll never have to come to you to whine about some not so happy things
Yeah.
or come to you asking for money, right? At least that I thought is a really funny way to look at things.
Yeah, I understand that. I think in a way so when I, gave my introduction to you, I was thinking about this that frankly, I also want people around me, or at least people I know, to be very happy in their lives. no matter I like them or I don't like them. There are a lot of people in my family which I really don't like, and I really don't like talking to them as well.
Right.
I think it happens with everybody. So in all the
Everybody,
families,
right?
you
No,
have
absolutely,
people you really
absolutely, yeah.
don't get along so well. I still feel that, they should be happy in their life for a simple reason that, when you see unhappy people around you, you also start feeling unhappy. And I really don't want people to spread those kind of vibes for anybody in the family or around the, localities or communities to spend any kind of unhappiness. So I think if everybody is happy, we all will be in a
Oh,
good
you
space
said a
together.
beautiful thing because I saw a video not too long ago where a guy is on a metro, like on a subway. I think it was New York or London. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He starts laughing for no reason, literally. I think. I know.
Uh-huh.
If not, I'll actually send the link. Right. Everybody, the next person, the lady sitting next to him, is amused by the fact that he's just laughing out aloud. So he starts
Uh-huh.
laughing. And then after like 3 minutes into the video, Vidhi, every single person is laughing, right? So much like what
Yeah.
you mentioned there, it's contagious, right? We see people happy, you're naturally going to get
Yeah.
happier
Go ahead.
as well, right?
So in like at home also, if you will see, you really don't feel like that anybody should be unhappy. If your husband, if your father, anybody is unhappy, you go to them and try that they should be in a good mood, or at least they should be out of the stress which they're suffering. So if people start thinking on those grounds, I think these all mental health issues will automatically start reducing, which are on an increase these days, which is really
You,
sad.
I feel like,
So
in the podcast, I'm going to add a link. My hope is, people watch it, and, as part of the company, and I'm publishing this, more people also sign up to our services. I have a
yeah.
feeling more than the people signing up for the services, I'm going to put Vidhi's phone number there. Everyone's like, no, 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 more than clicking on the link to sign up, I'm going to actually get the phone number. So you're going to get like a lot of calls from people everywhere. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to
I
do
would
this.
love to. I mean, since I have started writing on LinkedIn, a lot of people actually reach me on LinkedIn, and trust me, like my morning hours and evening 1 2 hours go on like messaging people and talking to them. I don't really prefer giving my numbers of people on LinkedIn,
I'm just
but
messing with you.
no,
No
no,
way I'm
I
giving
I'm just I'm just saying that I don't mind, but yes, I do need a business number for that because I really don't want my personal number to go out with all this. I can help people, and I
Obviously.
really want to do it from the core of my heart, but the people should be genuine. Some people just talk and I am not interested. You really have to filter people and things and what they want to talk about. So I am not somebody who's specialist at everything. I can just talk to you and get through a phase which is bothering you. That's only I can do, nothing else. I'm not a practitioner or a therapist, anything like that. You can come talk, please discuss if you feel like, and it's more than
There are, like,
sufficient to
for instance, right
get
now,
out of
this
it.
is awesome. So, if you any links you provide, I'll include it in the podcast so folks can, reach out to you. I'll tell you, by way of, coming to a closure, right? Remember I mentioned the other day, read an article on New York Times, I think the other day, but I believe there is a new sort of a role or a profession that's called cuddlist. It's called cuddlist, and I believe it's in New York City, right? Where
Okay.
actually people pay for those services.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, right? There's different perspectives to everything that gets posted.
Uh-huh.
But you can look that up. It's like people actually pay to get hugged. We've come. It's
This
nice
this
that people
for
are actually
sure
doing it.
cannot work in India, and especially with women becoming a cuddlist. It's not possible for
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's a lot of other challenges, but I was
sure.
just thinking, we are in a world where people want that level of. I want to resonate with what you said at the top of the call, right? There is a level of connection that you're expecting. You know what I mean? Sure, you need like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs for a position, right? You need a salary, you need a chair, you need a computer, you need the basics of what you need to get your job done, but that's not just going to keep the best people forever. So it's in the best
Yeah.
interest of companies to making sure they figure out what the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is at work. I'm pretty sure someone would have drawn this triangle, but I'm just saying it. It's important to appreciate the fact that people come from different backgrounds, different faith, different regions, different cultures, different languages. If you take just India as a country, we have like so many different languages, right?
Yeah.
It's rich in its culture and languages. So I was going to go into the depths, but we'll do a follow up to go into the depths of what is. I grew up in the south of India, like in Chennai, right? I went to school, like college in the north, like in Rajasthan, for instance. Even within the same nation, like 1,000 miles apart, there's dramatically different cultures, different
Yeah,
languages, right? Different food
definitely.
habits, for instance, right? So there's no silver bullet here. You can't say as a company, I'm going to come up with these 7 things. I'll throw a ping pong table, right? A table tennis table might be popular in one part of the world or one state versus the other. So I think there's no easy answer, right? A company will have to make an effort. If you're a startup, it's a little
Yeah.
bit easier because you're smaller. If you're a large organization, well, it's not easy, but you got more money, right? So you're going to have to put that to work to making sure people are happy so they don't leave as often, which
And,
means your
and and
retention is
cutting you
lower.
here, Krish, for a second. So, and also companies have to remember the fact that if you have like 2000 employees, all 2000 will never be happy. So don't ever think that, you are providing all this and everybody is happy. No, it can never be. So, you just have to make an effort that, most of the people stay happy, content that wherever they are. I don't know what, like, there's something which big brands are doing that people really don't want to leave them. I'm sure they are doing a lot of efforts into that, but there is something to them that, if you join a big four or a big brand, you don't want to leave it for like 7, 8, 10, 12 years maybe. There's something they are doing. I am sure they are providing all this which we spoke about, but more than that, I am sure there is a set of leadership or people who actually are there to listen. I think that impacts a lot. If you have a leadership who's willing to have an ear on the issues which people working on the ground level are facing, I think people really tend to stay with those kind of companies.
I think I'll add
Yeah.
one more thing, right? See, we're a startup, like we
Hmm.
have people working remotely, right? Over the years, I've worked with a lot of people, right? uh, you know I've we don't have yet the money for ping pong tables, table
Hmm.
tennis tables, for foosball tables, all of these ice hockey tables, right?
Yeah.
How do we find a way to keep people happy, right? I'll tell you, it's actually not as difficult as we might even think it is. The technology stack, as I told you, it's very
Hmm.
important for a software engineer. So we are always doing something that's very interesting, right? That's one thing. We have control over it. Even if we could use, I'll tell you, as a startup, I'm sure folks listening to it, you may be a big company, may not be, right? What if you're a small company? Here's the advice I would give you. You should give it a shot, right? If it doesn't hurt. Let's say we're building a new API, right, Vidhi? Let's say the next API we build to deploy in AWS Marketplace, we can pick any language we want. We
Yeah.
could do it in Ruby, we could do it in Node, we could do it in Golang. But then we have a team. We ask, hey, how do you think we want to do it? Somebody could come up with something that they say Python. I mean, I haven't done it. Maybe I should do it because machine learning needs Python. Let's do it, right? Now, if you do your way you do the pros and cons, right? If it doesn't make a dramatic difference to you in terms of cost and resources and skills, to me, don't fight the tide. Let the team make the decision, right? I promise you that goes a long way in keeping developers like me, happy, just doing what we want to do,
Happy.
right?
Yeah.
The next thing I'll tell you, the time, the flexibility in when you can
Okay.
get the job done. It's like a simple thing, but it goes a long, long, long
Wait.
way, right?
Absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say that, Vidhi, you need to start this thing at 10 o'clock in the morning. You need to end this at like 6 in the evening or something, right? No, maybe on a Monday for you, you want to do it at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Maybe on a Wednesday, you want to start your work at 3 in the afternoon, right?
Exactly.
You should
Yeah.
not feel like there's two parts to this problem, right? One is you should have the flexibility. That's what the company should offer, I think, within the realms of the core hours that everyone agrees on. Two is you shouldn't have to feel grateful for that privilege, because the moment you feel grateful, we start reacting a little bit differently, right? So I want to make
Differently.
sure,
Yeah.
my advice would be both parties should always believe that they have the upper hand, right? That's true. That has to be true. It may or
True.
may not be true in reality, but the moment you feel like, hey, as an employer, you don't have any upper hand, or as an employee, I don't have an upper hand, we are all both equal. You need me as much as I need you, right? If you
Yeah.
make that clear, and if that is truly felt by folks working with you, I think that you could save money on 2 foosball tables, maybe even 4 foosball tables, right? Maybe you
Exactly.
can cut that out, right? That those are some things I would advise to software companies. What would you advise, like, to not just software to companies, but with software also in mind, because we are selfish. That's the industry we are in. What would you recommend, that some of the things you think, hey, this doesn't cost a lot of money, but why don't you guys give it a shot, or girls give it a shot? Yeah.
I think this time flexibility is one thing which definitely all the companies should put up, because I think at the like I understand a lot of industries might not provide that kind of flexibility depending on the work and the deadlines they have from the clients, and that's understandable. But still, it's important that the result should matter. If somebody can, maybe somebody can give that in 2 hours, or maybe somebody can give that in 4 hours, but if somebody is able to do that, I think that time flexibility can be given by most of the companies. I mean, the time, like nowadays they have started, like going to office early and leaving. Like I remember when I did not start working, one of my close friends sister used to work in a company, and they used, like, I'm talking about 15, 16 years back.
Right.
That time also a lot of brands provided time flexibility, like flexi hours they used to call that at that time. I still think they call it that ways. But that time I used to hear, I was like, what is this flexi hours? And now I can see, so it's not a very new concept. It's long time back that people had that kind of a privilege. But yes, time flexibility is one thing. And hybrid model has, I think, already given a lot of flexibility to people, so they can go any day, they can decide on the days, or the team can decide on together which day they want to come and work and meet everybody. Plus, apart from that, I think in remote working there are few challenges, of course, because you guys are not meeting personally. So team building activities definitely help. Initially it was a bit tough for people. Now everybody is used to and they enjoy doing it. Sometimes, like, our team has stopped doing it recently. They have blamed it on the work, that they have a lot of work, so they don't have any
Right.
kind of time for 50 minutes in a week to play the game. But this should not be true. I think everybody should be supportive of the fact that they should at least have 1 hour every week to have fun with the teammates and have fun activities, talk about each other. You have been working for 3 4 years together, you should know what the other person likes or doesn't like, or what are their core areas which they can cater to other people and help them learn new things. So I think that way they will all, have a connect as well, although they don't meet, but still they can make and form a connect. So one thing is that, and of course, break off, time off, flexible work arrangements. These are all, I think everybody is providing these kind of basic things. So more or less
Again, yeah, no,
everything is
perfect,
covered.
right? I'll add one
Yeah.
more thing to that list is sometimes you're on a project, with software you have multiple projects. The work is a little bit different depending on the nature of the project. Even if you're in consulting engagement, right? Here's what I would recommend. Even if the project is 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever the time frame is, I think it's important to, uh, on day one, I think we have to sort of kind of know a little bit about each other. Just nothing formal, right? I need to know, hey, Vidhi is I'm going to be pairing with you and writing some code, for instance, right? It's very hard to write code with an absolute stranger. I mean, it's hard enough to
Yeah,
pair sometimes to write code with somebody you've been
absolutely.
working with for years. But I'm saying it's important to for people to take those initiatives and feel fulfilled, right? That's, I guess, the key. I mean, whatever it takes to feel fulfilled, so this work life harmony is established. I think it's important, that you work towards it both as an employer, as an employee, and as an employee as well, right? So I think these are a broad range of topics talk discuss in a converse between two people who are in two different professions altogether, right?
Yeah,
But there are commonalities, right? The problems are not necessarily different. And again, these are some solutions that we've discussed here may not be super expensive as well. Right? Having a conversation with somebody, if that's what you find
true.
pleasure in, right? Or
Yeah.
find these ways and avenues that are not pricey. Hopefully, that way we focus our energies happily in building good software, or in your case, uh, doing
Making good contracts,
great
or
legal work and
doing,
contracts, for
yeah.
instance, right? So you can do that a whole lot better. um, I promise I wanted to like break in between to give you a breather. But this is my fault. It was too engaging for me to actually even think about breaking this. So Vidhi, before I press stop, thank you so much for this. And before I end, I know you had mentioned about either creating a podcast or having created. So if you've done it, please share the link. I'll be happy to include that in the podcast. Folks, definitely check out. any work that Vidhi ends up doing in this space, because people who have the interest and the passion doing something like this. And now that you mentioned it to me, I'm going to keep asking you. So if you have not created that, you're going to have little choice but to actually create that podcast. No, sorry.
No,
But
I'm
this
not.
is
I am not definitely creating it. I'm happy doing it with you because for whatever reasons, I think I'm more
no,
happier in this kind of
no,
system.
absolutely. No, but thank
Yeah.
you. This was a great conversation, right? And again, if I had better knowledge and awareness in this area, I probably could have done a better job. But hopefully, I still want to touch upon these topics that have directly mattered to me as somebody who running a company and working with folks from different parts of the world. Any closing thoughts, Vidhi, before I hit pause here?
Yeah, I think we are still left with a lot of conversations which, this is actually a topic which is so broad that it can touch lot many things which really people really want to talk about. So we haven't touched upon how you can, you know, improve your mental health, or you can manage your day in a way that, it can improve your day a little better, or your mental, professional, personal health a little better. We'll talk about it if Chris really wants to do a
Oh no,
next
absolutely.
podcast
This
with
is
me.
great.
So we'll
Yeah.
do it in the next way. And I really want to thank you, Krish. I know this is my first, but thank you for being patient and trying this out with me. And we'll
Oh no,
keep on
thanks for
doing
your
this.
patience. And before I press stop, folks, I'm trying a new tool here. This is the third tool I've tried in the last 2 weeks, and hopefully, I did my part in making sure I understood the tool here. But thank you so much. And I just forgot to tell one or two things about the company. Before I end this, I'm just going to say it. For folks who have not seen, you've not checked out our products, definitely, just I'm going to give you a few links. I'm going to include that in the podcast as well. But by way of introduction, if you haven't watched the other podcast, please do so. You can go to apple.snowpal.com to check out the podcast on Apple. And if you're using Spotify, you can go to spotify.snowpal.com. This podcast, given the length, it's going to be split into, just given file and size limits, it's going to be maybe three, possibly even four parts. I'll number them and please watch them in sequence so you get context to these conversations. Two things about the company, or two or three things. Snowpal is a software startup based out of the Washington D.C. metro area. We provide backends as services to help companies reduce like time to market for your applications. So you're able to use our services on AWS Marketplace either as backends where you just pay per use and subscription. We have different pricing models, or if you have an interest in you deploying our products in and managing them in your infrastructure, you are welcome to do that as well. We have commercial licenses, so hit one of us up and I'll add my details and I can give you, speak more to it. We have our product suite is wide and it includes like several different products, web and mobile apps. You can go to snowpal.com or ios.snowpal.com or android.snowpal.com. These are B2C solutions. You can use them to manage your projects in school, at home, at work, as a YouTuber, whatever it is, whichever walk of life you're from, you should be able to manage your project seamlessly. We also offer like hands-on pragmatic courses across disciplines at prices like which is under $10. I think most of our courses are. So go to learn.snowpal.com to check out those courses. And if you like to create course content, you can publish your courses on our platforms as well. You just create your content and you can monetize your content by publishing your courses on our platform. So that's just a gist of some of the offerings. Sorry, it took 2 extra minutes, and I forget to do this introduction all the time, so it could have been a bit more succinct. But one more time, thank Vidhi Vohra from Delhi who joined us today. Took time out of her schedule on a Saturday morning. This is super appreciated, and sorry for keeping you for a bit longer.
No
I'm
problem.
gonna
Thank you. It's
I'm
my
gonna hit
pleasure.
I'm gonna hit pause here. Thank